Chapter 539. A few days ago, Qin Sheng was elected as a non-executive director, which shocked many related parties. Obviously, it was a game at the level of shareholders who were not easy to deal with. No one could guess how Qin Chang'an had turned the tide and allowed the two direct descendants of the Qin family to join the board of directors. However, it was certain that Qin Chang'an must have paid a price. After all, every director represented a different interest. Which director or shareholder did not have a powerful background? Qin Chang'an's eyes lit up. Most importantly, it was impossible for the other shareholders to allow the Qin family to dominate the market. They certainly would not allow such an existence. Now, Qin Chang'an's control was far less than before. Many shareholders appeared to be in harmony with him, but were actually at odds with him. Therefore, everyone was shocked by such a result. Today, Qin Sheng officially joined the company, which shocked the ordinary employees in the company. Everyone guessed whether it was a signal that the big boss was going to retire and let his son take over. Did it mean that the power would change and order would be disrupted and the middle and senior executives would have an opportunity? In just one day, the middle and senior executives of Chang knew that Qin Sheng was working in the company. Many people began to think about how to get close to the crown prince for their future. The office Xiao Yusin arranged for Qin Sheng was a suite, which used to be the office of a vice president. It had not been used since then. The secretary and assistant worked outside, and there was a bedroom inside. Qin Sheng basically did not change anything. Anyway, he did not have any requirements. Since Qin Sheng started to work in the company, Chang Baji, as his bodyguard, also joined the company. Gong Sun had arranged everything. When he was free, he could drink tea, chat, and read in Gong Sun's office. Anyway, it was convenient to go upstairs and downstairs, and Chang Baji would not feel bored. "Why are you still here after work?" When Qin Sheng came out of the office, Yin Pan and Wei Xiaoxia were still working, sorting out, and collecting relevant information for Qin Sheng. Although the crown prince did not have any specific work, they did not dare to neglect him. Wei Xiaoxia stood up with a smile and said, "Chairman Qin, you are still working. How dare we? If President Xiao knows, we will be in serious trouble." Yin Pan could not learn Wei Xiaoxia's flattery. She just stood up slowly and looked at Qin Sheng with a smile. She did not know much about this crown prince, so she would not say anything rashly. Qin Sheng laughed and said, "From today on, you're no longer part of the Dong office, so you don't need to care about the rules of the Dong office. Just go to work at normal times. I don't have any work to do now, so you don't need to work overtime. If there is anything, I will let you know in advance." Wei Xiaoxia's observation skills were very strong. She knew what to say and how to do things. That was why she was sent by Xiao Yusin to stay by Qin Sheng's side. In just a day, she already knew Qin Sheng's temper. This crown prince was very approachable. No matter what he said or what he did, he was very polite. Hence, the more familiar you were with him, the more comfortable he felt. If you kept your distance, he would do the same. "Really? Chairman Qin, you are so nice. We work overtime every day in the Dong office," Wei Xiaoxia said coquettishly. As long as a beautiful woman coquettishly acted coquettishly, it would be useful to any man. After all, she was beautiful. Qin Sheng was the same. There were two beautiful women by his side when he worked every day. How could it not make him happy? He smiled and said, "Then you can take it as a rest for a few days. When I get busy in the future, you won't have the chance." "Yes, thank you, Chairman Qin," Wei Xiaoxia said happily. Then she started to pack up and get off work. Qin Sheng had already called Chang Baji. Chang Baji was waiting for him at the parking lot downstairs. Brother Wu had also arrived at the company. Then they prepared to go directly to the place that Brother Wu mentioned. After leaving Jinwai Street, Brother Wu reported to Qin Sheng, "I have used my connections to get them out of the police station. At present, they have all returned to the construction site. I am thinking of a way to pay them. However, there's a small background there. They also said that if they dare to ask for money again, they will be locked up. It is a bit too much." Brother Wu had already called Qin Sheng several times, so Qin Sheng already knew what he needed to know. He had a plan in mind. Naturally, he had to take care of this matter. After all, He could not let those uncles who were cheated and bullied go home empty-handed. Otherwise, this city would completely break their hearts. Qin Sheng did not ask about this matter. Instead, he asked, "Brother Wu, I heard that you are from Inner Mongolia?" "Yes, I was born in the Hulumber Prairie. When I was a child, I grew up in Ordos. After high school, I went to Hulenhot," Brother Wu said in a low voice. He had short hair similar to Qin Sheng's. His body was well-proportioned, but he was much taller than Qin Sheng. He looked like a standard Inner Mongolia person. Qin Sheng continued to ask, "Are you familiar with Nangong? I heard from Uncle Gong's son that she recently went to Inner Mongolia. It seems that she is looking for an old friend of the old man. I don't know if she has found him." Brother Wu did not hide anything. The reason why he was sent to Beijing by his father to train was nothing more than to get in touch with a higher level. It would be more advantageous for him when he returned to Inner Mongolia in the future. However, in the past 2 years, he did not get in touch with anything. It was not until Uncle Gong's son arranged for him to follow Qin Sheng in the future that he saw hope. His father's level was just a small one. It was more or less popular in Inner Mongolia. However, the level of the old Qin family was very high. Otherwise, why would he come to Beijing and be a rich playboy quietly? She is not a stranger. In the past 2 years in Beijing, Nangong has taken care of me a lot. I know that she went to Inner Mongolia and met my father. However, it is too difficult for her to find Uncle Ding first. There's been no news of Uncle Ding for a long time, Brother Wu said truthfully. Uncle Ding was a man of God. It was said that he was a disciple accepted by Old Master Qin when he was young. Later, when Old Master Qin encountered a setback in the early stage of his business, he appeared and became Old Master Qin's think tank and military advisor. He did not retire until Old Master Qin stood at the top of Sijio City. Qin Sheng had already heard about Mr. Ding's story. He stood up bravely in times of danger and retired when he was at the top. He could solve all the crises that Qin Chang'an encountered over the years easily and never failed. Moreover, he was a close friend of several big shots in Sijio City. How could he not be a legend? However, Mr. Ding had retired for many years. Even Qin Chang'an did not contact him. Could Nangong find him? Even if she found him, could he come out of retirement again? From this, it could be seen that the crisis this time was not the same as before. It had already forced Qin Chang'an to ask Mr. Ding to come out of retirement. Maybe he thought that Mr. Ding had a solution. Qin Sheng asked subconsciously, "Do you know where Mr. Ding is?" Brother Wu shook his head and said, "I don't know. I only know that Mr. Ding has been in Inner Mongolia these years and occasionally goes to Qinghai, Tibet. The last time I saw Mr. Ding was 4 years ago. At that time, something happened to our family. Mr. Ding helped us get through the crisis. Since then, I haven't seen him since." Qin Sheng let out a long sigh and said, "It seems that Nangong's trip is in vain. There is no news from anyone. This is no different from looking for a needle in a haystack. The old man thinks too simply. If Mr. Ding wanted to help, he would have come out of retirement long ago. This shows that Mr. Ding does not want to get involved in this mess." After saying this, Qin Sheng felt a little regretful. He was afraid that he had revealed too much to Brother Wu. After all, he did not have much contact with Brother Wu. He only let down his guard because he knew that Uncle Gong's son was a junior who was cultivated by him and was very familiar with Nangong. In addition, he also knew about Mr. Ding. Brother Wu also noticed Qin Sheng's strangeness. He chuckled and said, "Qin Sheng, you don't have to be on guard against me. Maybe there are some things I know more than you do. I know what the Qin family is going through, and I heard a lot from my father. This time, the Qin family is going to get through the crisis. In the next 10 years, it can be said that there will be no big obstacles. But if they can't get through this, no one knows what will happen. So, if you want to know or need me to do anything, just tell me." After hearing this, Qin Sheng squinted and stared at Brother Wu. It would be too fake to say that he had no ups and downs in his heart. But he did not necessarily believe Brother Wu's words completely. He was just holding back. After all, it was just the beginning. Time would prove everything. "Then I thank you in advance, Brother Wu." Qin Sheng smiled politely. Inner Mongolia, Badain Jiren Desert. This was one of the 4 major deserts in China. It was located at the bottom of the Yinfu Basin in the west of Inner Mongolia. It was the main body of the Alxa Desert. There was an area of more than 10,000 square kilometers in the northwest of the desert that had not been left by human beings. Among them, the Byanawar and Quixote sandhills were the highest sand dunes in the world. They were between 1,200 and 1,700 meters above sea level. The relative height of the sandhills could reach more than 500 meters, which could be called the Everest of the desert. After Nangong entered Inner Mongolia, she went straight to this desert. She had been walking here for several days. The endless desert made her feel more and more agitated, but she still could not find the person she was looking for. Although the annual precipitation in the Jilin Desert was less than 40 millimeters, there were more than 100 lakes in the desert. At this time, Nangong was at the side of an unknown lake. She finally found the person she was looking for, which made her sigh in relief. However, the person she was looking for was not Mr. Ding. If it was so easy to find Mr. Ding, Qin Chang'an would have done it himself. Why did he wait until today to let her find him? She just knew from Brother Wu's father that Mr. Ding used to contact a person. This person planted trees in the Badain Jaren Desert, so she came here. Planting trees in the desert was not something ordinary people were willing to do, but some people were willing to devote their whole lives to the desert. Over the years, she had heard a lot of stories from the news. However, the person Nangong was looking for was unknown. It was not that he planted too few trees, but he did not want to be high profile. Planting trees was his business, and it had nothing to do with anyone else. At this time, around the lake, there were all kinds of seedlings of trees that could survive in the desert. This was a place that the man had just developed, so it seemed that there were not many seedlings. There were a few Mongolian yurts by the lake, and 3 or 4 cars were parked there. Nangong walked slowly toward them. As long as she saw the man, she could find Mr. Ding. As long as she found Mr. Ding, she could complete the task. As long as she completed the task, she could make her foster father feel more relaxed. So Nangong was determined to succeed this time. However, when Nangong approached the Mongolian yurt, a young man who had finished planting trees stopped her way. The young man glared at her and asked, "Who are you?" "I'm looking for a man," Nangong said straightforwardly. The young man's face changed slightly, and he said unhappily, "I don't know him. There is no such person. You should leave quickly." From the man's tone and the subtle changes in his eyes, Nangong did not believe him. She was too lazy to say anything more to this tanned, rough man. She directly walked forward and did not want to look for him anymore. "Stop. If you dare to take one more step forward, I won't be polite to you," the young man threatened. Because he knew that this woman came with bad intentions. It was because she called out the name a man Nangong said directly, "Then don't be polite." Chapter 540. One condition in Inner Mongolia was very interesting in the past few years. The grassland of East Mongolia was gradually degraded due to man-made destruction, while the desert of West Mongolia became more and more green under the efforts of people. This seemed to be a paradox. Those who had people did not cherish them, but those who had lost them tried their best to remedy them. Why bother? Fortunately, environmental protection policies were getting stronger and stronger in recent years. The decline of East Mongolia was gradually curbed, and the destroyed ecology began to be restored. Meanwhile, the desert afforestation in West Mongolia became more and more popular. The desert afforestation that Nangong found had just begun not long ago. After all, the vast Badain Jaren Desert could not be turned into an oasis in a short time. It required the efforts of generations after generations, maybe hundreds of years. The environment in the desert was extremely bad, especially in such an uninhabited place. Sandstorms were common. Ordinary people could not adapt to it, even if they traveled for 3 or 4 days, let alone the afforestation people who lived here for a long time. They were all voluntary, not for government work, and so on. A man, whom Nangong found, was such a volunteer. He was born here, so he wanted to change here. Besides, he had such an ability, so it was within his ability. However, it was not so easy for Nangong to meet a man. After all, a man was once the famous emperor of Mengshi. In Ordos, where there were rich people everywhere, Man's name might be more well known than the city leaders. But one day, Man suddenly lost all his wealth and disappeared. No one knew where he went, and no one knew why he left. Only a few people close to him knew what happened. Brother Wu's father had a close relationship with Man. After all, their family was considered a big family in the provincial capital, Gujarat. Therefore, they often hung out with the Emperor of Mongolia, Man. They were like-minded and had similar tastes. Moreover, they both knew Mr. Ding, so they became close friends. Later, after Man retired, the Wu family had been secretly taking care of Man's former relatives and friends so that the monkeys would not scatter when the tree fell. Nangong could find this place because the Wu family told him. After all, the Wu family had always been in contact with Man, and it seemed that only Man could find Mr. Ding. So Nangong had to make this trip. The young man was Man's nephew. After graduating from university, he had been working for Man. When Man made this decision, many people did not understand, but there were a few who followed Man to the desert unswervingly. This was not a show, nor was it an act. If you had to act for 5 or 10 years, you would be really awesome. The young man was originally just a student who had graduated from an ordinary university, but Man had hidden several experts here, all of whom were once Man's trusted aides. They had followed Man here without hesitation, so the young man had learned a lot from them. Moreover, this desert was meant to temper one's will and physique. If Nangong wanted to find Man, no one could stop him. Therefore, she didn't care about the young man's threat at all. Instead of talking nonsense, she might as well fight. Of course, the young man didn't have a good impression of this uninvited guest. He didn't think that this woman in camouflage clothes, carrying a military bag, wearing a hat and a mask was very powerful. However, when this woman directly rushed over, he felt the danger. After all, he had followed his uncle and seen the world. Nangong kicked the young man, who quickly bent down to avoid it. Following that, he punched back at Nangong's chest. However, the difference in strength was too great, so his arm was directly caught by Nangong. He wanted to lift his knee to hit Nangong, but Nangong punched him in the front of his thigh. Before he came to himself, Nangong had knocked the young man back several meters with her shoulder. The young man finally staggered and fell to the ground. As soon as they fought, Nangong knew that this man's strength was very ordinary, so she didn't hit him hard and reserve her strength. Otherwise, this man would definitely be injured. She came here to find someone, not to fight. If they hurt each other and he didn't tell her where Mr. Ding was, then she would have come here in vain. The young man was called Bak. After he fell to the ground, he was a little annoyed. He quickly got up and continued to rush over. Nangong snorted coldly and said, "You are no match for me, and I don't want to hurt you. I just came to find Man. Just let me see him. If you insist on stopping me, then don't blame me for being rude." Just now, it was Bak who said that he would be rude. In just the blink of an eye, it became Nangong who said that he would be rude. Bak didn't stop there. He didn't want others to disturb his uncle's life. He gritted his teeth and said, "You want to see my uncle? Impossible." Just when Bak was about to rush over again, a middle-aged man appeared out of nowhere and stopped him. He said to Bak faintly, "Bak, you are no match for her. You better step back." "Brother Yun." Bak immediately smiled when he saw the middle-aged man. His white teeth formed a sharp contrast with his dark and rough skin, but his eyes were clearer than many people's eyes. The man who was called Brother Yin by Bak was Man's former driver. He had followed Man for many years. After Man chose to retire from the underworld, this driver also disappeared with Man. In the end, they came here together and planted trees in silence. "How should I address you?" Brother Yun, who was wearing a hat, looked at Nangong and asked politely. He knew that Nangong was not his boss's enemy. Otherwise, Bak would have been dead by now. Moreover, she would not go to the dragon pool alone. Nangong put her backpack on the ground, threw away her hat, and took off her mask. Her exquisite face instantly stunned Bak. He didn't expect that the woman who had just beaten him up was so beautiful. So he stared at Nangong in a daze. His saliva almost flowed out. Let alone finding a girlfriend in this place, it was almost enough to see a few women in a year. Nangong tidied her hair and brushed off the sand on her body. She didn't care that Bach was staring at her so presumptuously. Anyway, he could see her but not touch her. In the end, she was the one who was tortured. Nangong. Nangong replied, after tying her ponytail again. Brother Yin slowly took a few steps forward. He didn't intend to fight with Nangong. Moreover, he knew that this opponent was very powerful and he might not be her opponent. So it was best to get along peacefully. May I know why Miss Nangong suddenly came to visit? Brother Yin still asked politely. Nangong sneered and said, I came to find a man to ask him something. Nangong called a man's name so confidently, which made Bach very unhappy. However, with Brother Yin here, he didn't dare to act wildly. He just stared at Nangong fiercely. Brother Yin was not angry, but he politely refused. Sorry, Miss Nangong, Uncle Man doesn't see anyone. Nangong smiled disapprovingly and said, Tisk, TSK, TSK. It's only been a few years, and a man has become so arrogant. Don't think that you can pretend to be a master in this wilderness. Tell him that someone from the Qin family of Beijing is looking for him. If he chooses not to see them, I'll leave immediately. The Qin family of Beijing. These 3 words carried a lot of weight. As a man's driver, Brother Yin more or less knew about the past. His face immediately became serious, and after thinking for a moment, he said, Miss Nangong, please wait a moment. I'll go and inform them now. Brother Yin nodded slightly at Nangong and immediately turned around. Bahi was puzzled and stopped Brother Yin. Brother Yin, Uncle said that he doesn't see anyone. Brother Yin gently patted Bahi's shoulder and said, There are some things you don't understand. You stay here and watch her. Wait for me to come back. Although Bahi was puzzled, he could only do so. In this station, other than Bahi and Brother Yin, there were 3 other people. Other than them, the rest were the workers. Bahi continued to look at Nangong, and his attitude had improved. After all, this was a great beauty in front of him. Beauty? Why are you looking for my uncle? Bahi smiled lightly and also wanted to ease the atmosphere. Nangong took out a dagger from her pocket and played with it. Then she sneered slightly disdainfully and said, Why? Are you interested in me? Bahi did not expect this beauty to be so direct. He smiled a little awkwardly and said, I'm just asking casually. My uncle usually doesn't see outsiders, even those old friends. So if you tell me clearly, I can still talk to you. Nangong said disapprovingly, You really think so highly of yourself. You don't have to worry. Your uncle will definitely see me, unless he has the guts to refuse. A rose with thorns. Bahi curled his lips and said, You're quite arrogant. Who do you think you are? Nangong was too lazy to bother with him. It was destined that she would not have any interaction with him, so it was useless to talk so much nonsense. She was bored and looked around the surrounding environment. She found that there were small saplings that had been planted not long ago everywhere. She asked curiously, Are these all planted by you? Bahi replied with a sense of accomplishment, What do you think? It's not just these. These are just places that have just been cultivated. There are also small saplings. If you go to the place where we used to live, you will definitely be shocked. Now it has become a forest. How about it? Isn't it great? Yes, it's quite amazing. Nangong did not deny it. It was indeed a great thing, which made her feel deep respect for the man whom she had never met. Not everyone could give up the scenery on the top of the mountain, take root in this land, and do such a thing in obscurity, which many people might not understand. After all, the difference was a little big. Hearing Nangong's words, Bahi felt a sense of accomplishment. He also felt that it was very great. In the beginning, he did not understand why his uncle wanted to do this. It was not until one day when he saw that the desert had become an oasis that he understood that this was a meaningful life. Just when Bahi was about to continue chatting with Nangong, Brother Yin had already returned. He walked slowly to Nangong and said, Miss Nangong, this way please. Uncle Man is waiting for you inside. Bahi was a little stunned. No way, his uncle had agreed just like that. Didn't he not see anyone in the past? He remembered that an old friend of his had waited for 3 days and 3 nights, but his uncle still did not agree. So Bahi began to guess who Nangong was and what was the background of the so-called Qin family in Beijing. Nangong winked at Bahi, meaning to say, How about it? I don't need your help. Your uncle will naturally meet me. Bahi felt a little embarrassed and could only follow behind. He must ask his uncle later. Nangong followed Big Brother Yun for a few steps before they arrived at a warehouse by the lake. It was filled with freshly delivered saplings. An old man in his 50s was tidying up the saplings with his head lowered. The old man's hands and feet looked very nimble, and he was very careful, as if he was holding some kind of treasure. "How did you know I was here?" the old man with gray hair asked without raising his head. Nangong squinted and replied, "Uncle Wu told me. This old thing, he sold me out just like that." The old man scolded and then said, "You want to see Mr. Ding?" Nangong nodded and then shook her head. "Yes and no. To be precise, it is my foster father who wants to see Mr. Ding." "Then why doesn't Qin Chang'an come in person?" the old man said with some disdain. Although Nangong had never seen Man, she knew this old man was Man. However, the old man's indifference made her very uncomfortable, so she snorted and said, "You are not qualified to ask my foster father to come here." When Brother Yun and Bahi heard this, their faces changed instantly. This was a little too arrogant. Was she really not afraid of causing trouble for this old man? The old man was not angry. He laughed and said, "That's true. How can I be qualified to ask Master Qin to come here?" Nangong said calmly, "Now, can you tell me, where is Mr. Ding?" "I can tell you where Mr. Ding is, but I have a condition." The old man still did not raise his head and just kept arranging the saplings. Chapter 541. Give me an inch and take a mile. The old man was Man. After all, Man used to be a powerful figure in Mingxi. Since he could spend all his wealth and live in seclusion at his peak, it showed that he was not an ordinary person. No wonder Mr. Ding trusted him so much. However, this once glorious old man was now just an ordinary old man in his 50s. The harsh conditions in the desert had made him look even older. His messy hair had long turned white, his skin looked very dry and dark, and his hands were full of calluses and cracks. Even if someone were to come over, they would not dare to say that this old man used to be an all-powerful big shot. If Qin Chang'an came to him, maybe Man would be respectful. After all, compared to Qin Chang'an, he had not reached that level. Qin Chang'an was a big shot whom Mr. Ding was willing to serve for many years. However, in the face of Nangong, Man naturally would not take it seriously. However, he had long lost his temper, and there was no need to be angry because of the arrogance of the younger generation. Whether it was Brother Yun or Bak, they were obviously very unhappy with Nangong's unruly behavior. As long as Uncle Man said something, they would definitely dare to bury Nangong in this vast desert. As for who they offended later, it did not matter. However, Uncle Man was not angry, and they could not act rashly. They had no choice but to watch Nangong and Uncle Man bargain. In fact, Man knew that they could find Mr. Ding even if he didn't tell them where Mr. Ding was. So, it was better to take advantage of the situation. As for whether Mr. Ding would meet them and return to Beijing, it was Mr. Ding's business. Seeing that Man was in a daze and did not speak, Nangong said again, "What's your condition? As long as it is within our ability, we will satisfy it." At this time, Man finally raised his head. His face was full of deep wrinkles, and his eyes were a little blurred, but he still had the same imposing manner as before. He looked at Bak next to him and said to Nangong lightly, "Take him to Beijing and let him work for your Qin family. I will owe you a favor." Nangong had thought that it would be a difficult task and was ready to haggle and pester Qin Haodong. However, she did not expect it to be so simple. It was just taking this man to Beijing to develop his career. It was just a piece of cake. Anyway, the Qin family did not lack such a person. If he had some ability, he could be used by the Qin family. Consequently, Nangong agreed without hesitation. Deal. Bak, on the other hand, was a little confused. He had thought that he was going to discuss some conditions with this woman, but he did not expect that it would be like this. He shouted anxiously, "Uncle, I won't go to Beijing. I want to stay by your side and accompany you to plant trees." Man especially valued this nephew of his, and it was not that he had to keep it by his side. Originally, with his power and connections, he could arrange for Bahi to be with any big shot including the Wu family that had started to turn the tides in Hua Hout. However, Aman still felt that it was a waste of Bahi's talent. Bahi was a kind-hearted child who could endure hardships. The most important thing was that he was more capable, so Aman wanted him to go further and fly higher. In the past, there was no suitable choice. Now that Nangong appeared, he thought of Qin Chang'an. This was not a difficult thing for the Qin family. He just wanted to give Bahi a platform. As for what he could achieve, it would depend on Bahi's ability. What can you achieve by planting trees? You've been with me for a few years. It's time for you to go to the big city. You are my nephew. If you can't make a name for yourself, don't come back to see me in the future. Aman scolded him with a smile, but his eyes were full of kindness and doting. His wife had passed away due to illness a few years ago, and his only daughter had long emigrated to the United States. This nephew had been taking care of him, so Aman was always worried about him. The sudden turn of events left Bahi at a loss. He had already fallen in love with the desert, and also liked planting trees. Hence, he was unwilling to leave. He could only beg, "Uncle, I don't want to go to Beijing. Let Brother Yin go. He is more capable than me." That's settled. Remember to find a reliable girlfriend. We can't cut off the fireworks in our family. Aman lowered his head again and said, "Now, go pack your things and get ready to set off with her." "Uncle," Bahi said with a face full of grievances, but he knew that the outcome could not be changed. He could only turn around and pack his things. At this time, Nangong asked again, "I've already agreed to the conditions. Can you tell me where Mr. Ding is now?" A man whispered, "Young man, why are you so anxious? Bahi will bring you there. As for whether Mr. Ding will see you or not, I can't do anything about it." Nangong said disapprovingly, "Don't worry about it." Not long after, he had already packed up his things. It was not too late to buy the rest when they arrived in Beijing. Thinking back, it was actually not bad. He had never been to the capital, Beijing, and it was a good opportunity to see the world. If he was not used to it, he could sneak back. In this way, Nangong successfully passed the test of Aman, but she knew that this was not the end. The real difficulty was after seeing Mr. Ding, and whether she could see Mr. Ding or not. When Qin Sheng arrived at a residential building in Beijing, night had fallen. However, compared to the bright lights on Jianwei Street, this place was really a little remote and lonely, because this was already the suburb outside the North Fifth Ring Road. Fortunately, Qin Sheng and the others had set off early, otherwise they would have been stuck on the road. Even so, it still took them 2 hours. This residential building looked very old. It should be a building from the 80s or 90s in the previous world. The car was parked on the road outside. Brother Wu led Qin Sheng and Chong Baji into the community. There were no original residents here for a long time. All the houses were rented to migrant workers who came to Beijing to work or drifters who wanted to make a career in Beijing. The community was relatively old, so the management was naturally lax. Everyone could come and go freely. There were many kinds of shops and restaurants in the community. It looked quite lively, but it was a little dirty and messy. The group of migrant workers in the old village lived in the innermost building, which was also the cheapest one. It was often visited by thieves, so everyone was very worried when they slept at night. After climbing 5 floors, Brother Wu finally led Qin Sheng to the villagers who worked in Beijing. Brother Wu took the lead and knocked on the door. A sloppily dressed villager ran out to open the door. After seeing it was Brother Wu, he said politely in broken Mandarin, "You're here, please come in." The villagers were very grateful to this young man in front of them. After all, he was the one who rescued them from the police station. But everyone also knew that he was Qin Sheng's friend. "Uncle Fu, look who's here." Brother Wu was very polite to these villagers. Even though he did not know what relationship they had with Qin Sheng, it was obvious that their relationship was not simple for Qin Sheng to be so attentive. The middle-aged man called Uncle Fu was a little confused. Just when he was confused, Brother Wu had already retreated to the side. Qin Sheng slowly took 2 steps forward and said, "Uncle Fu, do you still remember me?" Uncle Fu stared at Qin Sheng for a moment and said in disbelief, You are Qin Sheng?" Uncle Fu only remembered what Qin Sheng looked like when he was a child. He often played with the children in the village and often went to Zhongnan Mountains. Later, Qin Sheng went to school in Xin. He only came back to visit old Master Qin on weekends or during winter and summer vacations. Later, he went to Shanghai to study, and the number of times they met was even less. Uncle Fu only remembered that they met 2 or 3 times in those few years. The last time they saw Qin Sheng was when old Master Qin passed away. Qin Sheng came back to deal with the funeral. It seemed that since then, no one in the village had seen Qin Sheng. Many people thought that the child had gone missing. It was not until this year's spring festival, when Qin Sheng returned to the village and was found. Everyone knew that Qin Sheng not only did not go missing, but he had already made a name for himself. It was a pity that Uncle Fu went to the city to buy goods for the spring festival and did not see Qin Sheng. At this moment, Uncle Fu only recognized Qin Sheng from his previous memory. After all, except for his temperament and clothes, Qin Sheng's appearance did not change much. "Yes, Uncle Fu, I am Qin Sheng. I didn't expect you to remember me. When I was a child, I went to your house to eat." Qin Sheng held Uncle Fu's calloused hands and smiled. Uncle Fu had no time to say hello to Qin Sheng. After all, there were already people inside, asking who he was. Uncle Fu quickly pulled Qin Sheng inside and shouted to the crowd at the same time, "Everyone, come out quickly. Qin Sheng is here. Qin Sheng is here." The people who were discussing things in the inner room heard Uncle Fu shout and ran out in an instant. Some of these people had seen Qin Sheng during the Spring Festival, while others, like Uncle Fu, had not seen Qin Sheng for a long time. In any case, when everyone saw Qin Sheng, they were very affectionate and greeted Qin Sheng. It was almost the same as when they went back for the Spring Festival. After all, Qin Sheng also came from the village, and he had helped them a lot this time. After a short period of bustle, the young man who brought everyone out of work said, "Uncles, let's let Qin Sheng sit down first." Everyone nodded and quickly made way for Qin Sheng. The young man, who looked much older than his actual age, pulled Qin Sheng and said, "Qin Sheng, sit anywhere you want. Our conditions are a little difficult. You can make do with it." Qin Sheng shook his head and said, "Brother Jiang Wo, don't be so polite with me. When I was a child, I followed you to the river to catch fish, and you taught me how to swim." The man named Jiang Wo said half-jokingly, "Oh, you remember all these. I have forgotten, but now it is different. You, a naked boy, have become a big boss." He did not want to be too distant with Qin Sheng. In fact, when he said these words, he was a little nervous. After all, he had not contacted Qin Sheng for many years. Qin Sheng had made a name for himself now, while he was just a small labor contractor. There was a world of difference between them. Qin Sheng did not regard himself as an outsider at all. He said, "Haha, yes, time flies. I did not expect you to be in Beijing. If Huzi did not tell me, I really did not know." Jiang Wo let out a long sigh and said, "Alas, thanks to Huzi. If Huzi did not contact you, we would still be inside now. I am fine, but the brothers and uncles are all responsible people." As soon as they entered, they were all scared. "These sons of be asterisk cheese." Qin Sheng said faintly, "Now it is all right. It is good that you are out. Alas, although we are out, we have not gotten the money for our hard work. It is all my fault. I am really useless." Jiang Wo said with some distress. He was a renovation labor contractor. He took the villagers who were skilled and willing to work as small laborers in the village. In addition, he had 2 friends who worked in a renovation and design company. He gave them a lot of goods. So in the past 2 years, they had made a lot of money. It was just that this time, they met a boss who did not pay. He was a little puzzled. Such a rich local tyrant, would he be short of money? Why did he have to bully ordinary people like them? Qin Sheng comforted him in a low voice. "Don't worry about money. I will help you. They will give you money." Hearing Qin Sheng's confident words, Jiang Wo said doubtfully, "Really?" However, at this time, before he had time to be happy, there was a noise outside. The half-open door was suddenly kicked open. 7 or 8 gangsters holding sticks shouted, "Who is Wang Jiang Wo? Come out." Chapter 542. Go back with a message. Qin Sheng had not seen most of these villagers or childhood friends for a long time. Although he did not have much affection for the old village, he still remembered those things when he was a child, such as freeloading meals, sending vegetables and food to them, climbing trees, walking birds, going down rivers and mountains with his fellows, and so on. Those were all childhood events that he could still vaguely remember. As for those events in Beijing, he had almost forgotten all of them. Moreover, he did not see his childhood playmates after he came back. Therefore, Qin Sheng was quite happy to see these fellows and childhood friends today. As for other trivial matters, they were not important. Moreover, it was not difficult for Qin Sheng. He mainly wanted to chat with them and reminisce about the old days. After all, such opportunities were rare. However, Qin Sheng did not expect that not long after he sat down, people from the other side came to make trouble. They were really shameless. He did not find trouble with them, but they took action first. He could not tolerate this. The villagers were all frightened by the sudden appearance of so many big bullies. After all, they had seen the power of this group of people and had even locked them up in the police station. It was probably the first time for many of them to go there. Now that something like this had happened, everyone was trembling in fear. Some of the more timid ones didn't even want the money anymore. Money was important, but their lives were more important. As long as they could return safely, that was enough. Wang Jiangwo did not flinch. If he had flinched, he would not have insisted on getting the money. He brought the villagers out to work to earn money. If the villagers returned empty-handed in the end, he would not be able to face the hundreds of people in the village. Therefore, no matter what danger he encountered, Wang Jiangwo would not give up. He would get the money back anyway. I am Wang Jiangwo. Why are you looking for me? Wang Jiangwo stood up courageously and looked straight at the big brother wearing a thick gold chain. He had encountered such a thing before, so he was not very afraid. It was nothing more than a beating, but it was impossible for him to give up the money. At this time, Qin Sheng had already stood out. He stared at these men gloomily. Chang Baji and Brother Wu did not act rashly. Moreover, there were a few bodyguards from the Qin family in the car who were more than enough to deal with these people. The 7 or 8 strong men were either bald or had big gold chains and tattoos on their bodies. They didn't look like good people. The word bad was written on their faces, so the other villagers didn't dare to speak. The strong leader ignored the other people in the room and went straight to Wang Jiangwo. He pointed at Wang Jiangwo with a stick and said, "Oh, you are Wang Jiangwo. Do you know why I'm looking for you?" Wang Jiangwo shook his head honestly and said, "I don't know." "You really don't know?" He subconsciously wanted to beat Wang Jiangwo, but he was stopped by a lackey behind him. The lackey whispered a few words into the strong man's ear and finally put down the stick. However, even so, Wang Jiangwo and the villagers were still shocked. No matter how much money you have, it's not as valuable as your life. You're just ordinary migrant workers. Why do you want to fight with Boss Chow? If he gets angry, breaking your arms and legs is a small matter. If you lose your life, it's not worth it. So I'm telling you, you'd better forget it. That way, we won't make things difficult for you. We also feel that you're quite pitiful, right? Wang Jiangwo smiled and continued to say to Wang Jiangwo, "Brother, since you don't know, I'll tell you about it. What I said is the truth. No matter how much money you have, it's not as valuable as life." A few villagers behind him were already muttering, "Jiangwo, if we really can't do it, let's give up the money and pretend that it was stolen. Don't fight with them anymore. In the end, we will suffer losses." The others also echoed. Only 2 or 3 young people were angry and stared at these gangsters fiercely. However, they did not dare to act rashly, for fear that they would be the ones to suffer in the end. Wang Jiangwo gritted his teeth and said, "Unless I die, I must get the money back. It is impossible for Chow Dahua to renege on his debt. I don't care how powerful his background is. He must pay for his work." The strong man was also angry and said helplessly, "Why are you so stubborn? I'm talking to you nicely. Can't you understand? Do you really want me to beat you up?" There was already a gangster behind him who said, "Big brother, why do we talk nonsense with him? Just beat them up. If he is still so stubborn, then don't blame us for teaching him a lesson. You know nothing. This is called courtesy before force. Learn," the strong man scolded. He was still reasonable. He did not beat them up with sticks. After saying that, He looked back at Wang Jiangwo and said, Jiangwo, in fact, we don't want to teach you a lesson. We also know that it is not easy for you, but we have no choice. Since we took the money, we have to eliminate the disaster. Moreover, we can't afford to offend Boss Chow. So let me ask you one last time. Do you still want the money? Wang Jiangwo said confidently, This is our hard-earned money. Why can't we take it? This is the capital of Beijing. I don't believe that there is no law here. The strong man was so angry that he scolded, F***CK, you are really shameless. Then don't blame us for not being polite. After saying that, the strong man raised his stick and was about to hit Wang Jiangwo. Wang Jiangwo was ready to fight to the death. Unfortunately, the stick had already been caught by Chang Baji, who was standing by the side. At this time, Qin Sheng said in a timely manner, Oh, I understand now. Boss Chow asked you to come. Being stopped by someone, the strong man was quite angry and scolded, Who the F***CK do you think you are? Qin Sheng did not want to be polite with him. He was afraid that these gangsters had done a lot of bullying. So Qin Sheng's face changed instantly. He suddenly picked up the chair that he had just sat on and smashed it on the back of the strong man as fast as lightning. Qin Sheng's movement was very fast. The others did not see clearly at all. When they came back to their senses, the strong man, who had been showing off just now, was instantly smashed to the ground by Qin Sheng, moaning in pain. The chair was made of solid wood. Although it did not shatter into pieces as exaggerated as what was shown on TV, 2 of its legs were broken. At this moment, the strong man was grimacing in pain. The brothers behind him wanted to rush forward subconsciously. Chang Baji and Brother Wu immediately took action without hesitation. The whole room was in a mess in an instant. The villagers were so scared that they retreated backward. A few young people, including Wang Jiangwo, saw that Qin Sheng had taken action. They did not care about anything else and directly rushed forward to help. They could not possibly be cowards when others stood up for them. Not long after, the group of high-spirited gangsters all fell to the ground. On Qin Sheng's side, except for 2 young people who were slightly injured, the others were basically fine. Although the matter was over, Wang Jiangwo and the others were somewhat afraid. They were afraid that they had offended the other side. However, Qin Sheng glanced at Wang Jiangwo, indicating that he did not need to worry about this matter. He could handle it completely. At this time, Qin Sheng squatted in front of the strong man and said, Now you know what I am. Big brother, master, we have eyes but failed to see and offended you. Please forgive us. We had no choice. If you have any problems, you should look for Boss Chow. This has nothing to do with us. The strong man hurriedly begged for mercy. He was afraid of being beaten again. Today, they had met a tough opponent. It was their bad luck. Qin Sheng smiled faintly and said, If I were not here today, I am afraid that you would have shown your skills by now. You bully ordinary people and show off your skills. When you meet a tough opponent, you pretend to be a coward. If you're a boss like you're destined to be ordinary for the rest of your life. Anyway, the strong man admitted to being cowardly and said, You are right. We were just trying to make a living. We really did not want to bully anyone. Cut the crap. Go back and tell Boss Chow that if he doesn't deliver the money by tomorrow morning, I'll go to him myself. At that time, it won't be a matter of money anymore, Qin Sheng said firmly. As for you guys, if you're not convinced or want to take revenge, I'll wait for you. But I'm afraid you can't bear the consequences. That's right, the strong man replied with a flattering face. Big brother, we dare not. We really dare not. I will definitely tell him that Boss Chow is really not a good person. He is F***king exploiting the migrant workers. I can't stand it anymore. Qin Sheng scolded angrily. Don't F***king act in front of me. Get up quickly and get lost. I am annoyed when I see you. Otherwise, I will change my mind later. When a strong man heard Qin Sheng's words, he instantly smiled. Although his back hurt so much that he was trembling, he quickly got up and winked at the brothers who were also lying on the ground. The brothers who were moaning just now ran out in an instant. They did not stop until they went downstairs, for fear that the men just now would chase after them. One of the brothers was really not convinced and shouted, Big brother, are we just going to let it go? After the burly man heard this, he kicked the underling away and said, F***CKU. Can't you grow some brains? Are we going to risk our lives? This is the Chow family's business. It has nothing to do with us. Didn't you hear their tone? They don't care about the Chow family at all. Are we going to die? The brother got up and said respectfully, Big brother's right. Big brother's right. Then they hurriedly left the community and went back to report to the big brother and boss Chow. In the room, after those gangsters left, Wang Jiangwo took the lead and said, Qin Sheng, thank you so much. If it were not for you today, we really do not know what to do. Several young people and the villagers also surrounded him and thanked him, which made Qin Sheng feel a little embarrassed and at a loss. He just did what he should do. For these villagers, it seemed to be a great kindness. In fact, in contrast, Qin Sheng felt that what they had done in the past was really a great kindness. Qin Sheng hurriedly comforted them and then asked whether the two childhood friends were injured and so on. In the end, after making sure that they were all right, Qin Sheng said, I guess everyone has not had dinner yet. I will take you to eat first. We will discuss the rest later. Chapter 543. Everyone knew. Wang Jiangwo brought a total of 8 villagers from the village. 3 of them were his peers, and the other 5 were elders who had all kinds of experience in decoration. These villagers used to work in Xi'an, but the wages in Xi'an were really low, so they followed Wang Jiangwo to Beijing. Otherwise, how could these Guangzhou men be willing to be so far away from home? The young ones had to face the practical problems of buying a house, a car, and getting married. The old ones wanted to help their sons and daughters, so that they wouldn't feel too much pressure. After all, they were ordinary people who didn't have much money saved over the years. Qin Sheng had already asked Brother Wu to book a place for dinner. It was a high-end restaurant with a good environment at the North Fifth Ring Road. These villagers were definitely reluctant to spend money on normal days. They would put up with whatever they could eat and wear. Hence, today would be a chance for them to improve their lives. Moreover, Qin Sheng should treat them to a meal. There were 2 cars of the Qin family parked on the roadside outside. Qin Sheng, Brother Wu, and Wang Jiangwo sat in the first car, and the other villagers sat in the second car. The bodyguards took a taxi to take them there. On the way, Qin Sheng asked about some specific things. Then he asked about the trivial things in the village, such as how his childhood playmates and fellow villagers who had helped him and his grandfather were doing. After all, he did not stay for long when he went back last time. When they arrived at the place to eat, the villagers were stunned by the extravagance of the place after they got out of the car. This looked like a particularly expensive place. There were independent buildings, and there was a huge fountain at the entrance. The villagers had never been to such a high-end place to eat. Wang Jiangwo originally wanted to treat Qin Sheng, but now he was in a dilemma. He really could not afford to treat Qin Sheng. Fortunately, after they got out of the car, Qin Sheng took the initiative to say, Uncles, you have been in Beijing for so long, I have never known about it. Today, let me do my best as a host. Wang Jiangwo was a little embarrassed, but he still bit the bullet and said, Qin Sheng, how can we do this? You have helped us so much. This meal should be our treat. Wang Jiangwo was quite honest. He had already made up his mind. As long as Qin Sheng could help him get his money back, no matter how much he spent on this meal, he would accept it. He would just take it as him earning less. It was better than getting nothing at all. Of course, Qin Sheng knew what kind of situation they were in. He smiled and said, Jiangwo, don't argue with me. If I didn't know that you came to Beijing, I wouldn't care. But now that I know if I don't even treat you to a meal, I'm afraid that I won't have the face to go back to the village in the future. After that, Qin Sheng did not give Wang Jiangwo a chance to continue talking. He pulled them inside and then entered the private room under the guidance of the waiter. At the beginning of dinner, the atmosphere was a little stiff. After all, the villagers had never been to such a high-class place. They were obviously a little restrained and couldn't let loose. However, after drinking some wine and Qin Sheng's intention to stir up the atmosphere and rhythm, the villagers became more talkative. They talked about the past of Qin Sheng and old Master Qin in the village without prior agreement. Qin Sheng was also very absorbed in listening to them because he had forgotten many things. That was Qin Sheng's childhood. It was the days when he and his grandfather depended on each other. Qin Sheng missed it very much, but he could never go back. In the past, he had nothing but his grandfather. Now, he had everything except his grandfather. Maybe this was the so-called regret in life. After drinking, Qin Sheng asked the bodyguards to send the villagers back to the place where they lived. Before leaving, he told Wang Jiangwo to follow him to collect the money tomorrow. At that time, he would ask the bodyguards to pick him up. Wang Jiangwo did not know what the final result would be. Would he return without any achievement again? But he still agreed. After all, Qin Sheng was his only hope now. On the way back to the Sihiyuan, Brother Wu's doubts were finally solved. He was wondering why he had never seen or heard of Qin Sheng before. Suddenly, Master Qin had such a son. Moreover, Qin Sheng was not an illegitimate son, but a legitimate son. He was Qin Rant's biological brother. Now he finally understood. It turned out that Qin Sheng grew up in Xi'an instead of Beijing. No wonder he did not know. More importantly, Qin Sheng was raised by old Master Qin, which was probably something that many people did not know. When Qin Sheng returned to the Sihiyuan, the others had already returned. Before he walked into the living room, he had already heard the laughter inside. Qin Sheng thought that there were guests. After entering, he found that there were only the old man, Aunt Yi, and Uncle Gong's son. There were no outsiders. Why was it so lively? Anyway, Qin Sheng had not heard such laughter for a long time. He took off his coat while walking and asked, "What makes you so happy?" Zhao Anji said softly, "Sheng, you're back." Qin Jing quickly got up and ran over. She gave Qin Sheng a big hug and asked, "Brother, today is your first official day at work. How do you feel? Are you bored?" Qin Sheng let go of Qin Jing and gently stroked her hair. "I don't feel bored. I read the information for a whole day. It's quite interesting. It should be more interesting in the future." Qin Jing spread her hands and sighed. "I feel quite bored. Maybe it's because I haven't worked for a long time. I still feel the most comfortable at home. How nice it would be if I never went to work." Qin Sheng knew that today was not only his official start, but also Qin Jing had joined the company and was training in the Human Resources Department. So he smiled and said, "If you feel bored and don't want to go to work, you don't have to go. Anyway, our family can afford to support you." Qin Jing smiled awkwardly and said, "Forget it. I was just saying. It's more boring." After Qin Sheng sat down, Gong's son, who had already smelled the alcohol on Qin Sheng, had already arranged for a servant to bring a bowl of porridge and make tea for Qin Sheng to sober up. "It's your first day at work, and you didn't go home on time. If you don't go home in the future, just tell your Uncle Gong's son. We don't have to wait for you for dinner," Qin Chang'an said with slight dissatisfaction. However, he did not want Qin Sheng to think that he was too strict. Qin Sheng had long been used to the old man's way of talking. Sometimes his concern was very direct, and sometimes it was dignified. He nodded and said, "Got it." Qin Chang'an slowly got up and left. "Then you guys talk. I'm going to rest." Qin Sheng stayed in the living room and chatted with his aunt, Yi. She would leave for Shenzhen tomorrow afternoon. She would stay for a long time, and Qin Sheng did not know what she was going to do. But Shenzhen was a strategic city of Chang and Group. The headquarters of several subsidiaries were all there. If Qin Chang'an was there, maybe Qin Chang'an, who was far away in Beijing, could rest assured. Yi coquettishly said that she wanted Qin Sheng to wake up tomorrow and call her to exercise and eat breakfast. Then they would go to the company together. Of course, she could not go with her uncle. In the dead of night, a rich man in a villa area in the North Fifth Ring was drinking red wine and smoking a cigar while watching a football game. He was Boss Chow, who owed Wang Jiangwo and other villagers hundreds of thousands of dollars. Boss Chow was not short of money. After all, he was a big boss with a net worth of hundreds of millions. It was just that because of some trivial matters, he was narrow-minded and did not pay the bill for Wang Jiangwo on purpose. The strong man who had been beaten by Qin Sheng and others came to report. He shouted with a wronged face, "Brother Chow, it's not that we are too useless. It's that our opponents are too strong. The bodyguards of that young man are too powerful. They are professional martial artists. We can bully ordinary people, but when we meet these masters, we are completely seeking death. Who on earth is that young man? Boss Chow was slightly bald. He had a well-proportioned body, and his eyes were quite sharp. After all, he was a big man. The strong man replied with a depressed face. How would I know? I just want to scare them. Who knew that I would meet that young man? I guess they could only come out because of that young man. By the way, Brother Chow, that young man also asked me to bring you a message. What message? Boss Chow asked with a slight frown. The strong man deliberately kept him in suspense. I dare not say it. Why not? Say it. Boss Chow snorted. He had been in Sijio City for so many years and knew all kinds of big shots. How could he be afraid of a young man? Moreover, what kind of big shots could a labor contractor know? At most, they were just some rich second generations. The strong man took a deep breath and said, that young man said that if you don't send the money by tomorrow morning, he will come to you personally. At that time, it will not be a problem of money. After hearing this, Boss Chow was so angry that he directly smashed the cup in his hand. He shouted, How dare a brat threaten me? I really don't want to give him the money. I don't believe he can do anything to me. Didn't he want to come to me? Fine, then I will see how capable he is. Anyway, the strong man had already gotten the money. He did not care who was more powerful. If Boss Chow was powerful, they could vent their anger on him. If the young man was more powerful, then they could just take the money and disappear quickly. Anyway, the final result would be known tomorrow. Compared to Boss Chow, who might be very powerful in the eyes of ordinary people, the other person whom Qin Sheng had provoked could be considered a real big shot. That was Xue Ku, who had been severely humiliated by Qin Sheng and Han Su. At this moment, the anger of the eldest young Master Xue, who was recuperating in the private hospital, was far from comparable to Boss Chow's. That was because Han Su had already spread the news that he had been beaten up, stripped naked, and thrown into the heavy rain. Many people had already called Xue Ku. Chapter 544. Chapter 545, dealing with every move, a new month, asking for a monthly ticket. After all, this was a shameful thing. Xue Ku was a proud and conceited person. Of course, he did not want others to know. Otherwise, he would lose all his face, and even the Xue family would be disgraced. Therefore, since the incident came out, Xue Ku controlled the news within a certain range. Whether it was the police station or the hospital, including the drunk man who found him, he had taken care of everything. For this reason, he even told his family that he went on a business trip, so that he could cover it up and at the same time, he could investigate behind his back. However, he did not expect that this news would be leaked, and now it was known by the whole city. Everyone knew what happened that day, and they bombarded him with phone calls to verify it. Xue Ku was so angry that he had to hang up the phone. From today onwards, Xue Ku had no face. This incident was destined to become a joke in his life. God knows how many people who did not get along with him or his enemies laughed at him behind his back, wantonly using this incident to make fun of him. Of course, they did not dare to laugh at him face to face, but it was even more uncomfortable. Moreover, they did not know when this incident would be forgotten. At this moment, the ward was in a mess. No one dared to touch Xue Ku's bad luck, which was tantamount to drawing fire to themselves and letting Xue Ku vent his anger on them. Everyone had to stay far away and just watch Xue Ku fly into a rage. F***CK, who is it? Who the hell is it? Don't let me know, or I will definitely kill you. Xue Ku was so angry that he shouted and shouted. Before this, he was the bright and beautiful young Master Xue. No matter where he went, he was the moon. There were always people who did not like him, but they could do nothing about it. However, from now on, no matter how much people flattered him, Xue Ku might feel that they were laughing at him behind his back. No one dared to speak, and no one dared to respond. Xue Ku, who was in a rage, could do anything. At that time, they would be the ones who would suffer. Xue Ku's confidant was afraid that Xue Ku would be so agitated and angry that he would hurt his health. So she whispered, "Calm down first. We will definitely find the mastermind behind this." "What do you know? Get the hell away from me." Xue Ku scolded her, not giving her any face at all. His confidant could only lower her head and grieve. Xue Ku would never treat her like this in the past. After cursing his confidant, Shueka suddenly turned around and looked directly at the man called Wu Yao. He had asked Wu Yao to do all these things. Now that the news had been leaked, Shueka really didn't know if Wu Yao had anything to do with it. Before Shueka opened his mouth, Wu Yao replied in a hurry, "Young master, I've done everything you asked me to do. It's definitely not me who leaked it. If I didn't have the ability to do this, I would have left long ago. It's definitely not me." Shueka said gloomily, "If it wasn't you, then who could it be?" "Wu Yao, are you trying to make fun of me?" Upon hearing this, Wu Yao was so scared that he almost fell down. If Shueka really thought so, he would be in trouble. So Wu Yao hurriedly begged for mercy. "Young master, this is absolutely impossible. I'm not such a person. You treat me as your biological brother. I, Wu Yao, will not do such a thing that will anger both men and gods. Young master, you have to believe me." At this time, Shueka was already in a mess. Although it was such a small matter, there were still a lot of troubles that needed to be dealt with behind the scenes. Now his head was about to explode. So Shueka kicked the chair away and scolded again. "It's not you, it's not him, it's not me. It's me who told everyone that you are a group of useless people. You can't do anything. Get the hell out of here, get the hell out of here." This group of people did not know whether to stay or leave, which made them even more embarrassed and embarrassed. In the corridor outside the ward, the doctors and nurses of the hospital did not dare to come in. However, they were afraid that Shueka would be too excited and have an accident, so they could only wait outside. At this time, a man pushed through the crowd and walked in slowly. He looked at the mess in the ward and frowned slightly. When the people who did not know what to do saw this man coming in, they instantly relaxed a lot. This man was Shueka's best friend, Gu Yongning. He had also heard that Shueka was staying here after getting the news. Gu Yongning waved to the crowd and said, "You all go out. Let me talk to old Shue." Hearing this, everyone felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off their shoulders. They immediately nodded and left, not wanting to stay a second longer. When young Master Shue got angry, no one would be able to withstand it. Although he did not usually get angry, the nature of this matter was different. After everyone left, only Shueku and Gu Yongning were left in the room. Gu Yongning casually straightened the chair on the ground and said in a low voice, "Such a big thing happened, and you did not tell me. Are you really going to take it by yourself?" Shueka was angry at this time. He sneered and said, "Why? Are you here to see me make a fool of myself?" Gu Yongning was a little funny. He knew that Shueka was still angry. He said helplessly, "If I wanted to see you make a fool of yourself, I didn't have to come here. We have been together for so many years. You know in your heart whether I am that kind of person or not." Shueka was a little silent. What Gu Yongning said was true. He could be so close to Gu Yongning because they were like-minded. Therefore, he sighed and said, "Well, I'm not in a good state now. Don't take what I said to heart. Things have happened. It is not your character to talk about these things. Now think about how to face it or how to find the person behind the scenes. This is the most important thing." Gu Yongning did not comfort Shueka. He bluntly talked about the current situation and problems. Shueka stared at Gu Yongning very seriously and said, "Do you have any suggestions? Before I got this news, I didn't know whether it was true or not. So others definitely don't know. You just need to refute the rumor and say that you will find the person who spread the rumor. At that time, you can casually play one or two scapegoats, put on a show, and this matter will be over. It is up to others whether they believe it or not. It is just to confuse them. At that time, they will at most believe it and doubt it." Gu Yongning very calmly made a plan. Shueka was blinded by anger, but as an outsider, he could calmly think of a solution. As expected, after Shueka listened to him, he said in surprise, "Awesome. You are really awesome. Old Gu, I finally know why you minored in psychology. You have to put on a show until the end. Don't go out these days. Just stay in the hospital. I promise not to reveal your news. Then, when you go to other places, you will come back. As for people asking about you, you can say that you are traveling or on a business trip." Gu Yongning continued to advise him. After listening to him, Shueka nodded silently and said, "This is a good idea. Anyway, I just happen to tell my family that I'm going to Shaman on a business trip. Isn't that just right? This matter is perfectly solved. Gu Yongning said with a smile, but then he said, but the most important thing is that you have to find out who is targeting you. Do you have any suspects now? Shueke shook his head slightly and said, at the beginning, I also investigated a few of the girl's pursuers, but what happened today has ruled them out. They don't have that much power, so they should be my enemies. Then who have you offended recently? Gu Yongning continued to ask. Shueke frowned and said, I haven't offended anyone recently, except for the time when we set up a trap for Qin Chang'an's son in the nightclub last time. I haven't offended anyone else. After all, I have been keeping a low profile this year. Could it be him? He has this ability and this power, so the possibility is very high, Gu Yongning asked. Shueke answered truthfully, it is not that I didn't suspect it, and I also investigated his schedule that day. But it seems that he directly returned to the Qin family's Sihiyuan after the class at Tsinghua University and never came out again. Gu Yongning squinted and said, Lao Shui, if you really suspect it is him, then you have to investigate it carefully. If he wants to target you, he must have come up with a perfect plan. How could he let you find out so easily? Besides, he doesn't have to do it himself, right? Gu Yongning's reminder made Shueke come to his senses. It was true, so he immediately called the others in. The trap that Qin Sheng and Han Su had set up for Shueke was unexpectedly easily solved by Gu Yongning, but it still caused some trouble for Shueke. What should he do next? Qin Sheng did not worry so much. This was just a simple revenge against Shueke. The two families were originally enemies, and they would definitely fight against each other in the future. So he would wait and see what Shueke would do. In the morning, after breakfast, all the members of the Qin family left the Sihiyuan. Zhao Anji went to the airport and did not let anyone see her off. Qin Chang'an's motorcade left for the Chang and group first. Not long after, Qin Sheng and Qin Jing left in the same car. Qin Jing had already said that she would take a ride to and from work in the future, so Qin Sheng had no choice. When Qin Sheng arrived at the company, his two assistants had already arrived in advance. Qin Chang'an had already given some instructions to Xiao Yusin, and Xiao Yusin immediately passed the message to Qin Sheng. In the future, Qin Sheng would be required to attend the meetings of the senior management level as a routine, so Yin Pan had already sent Qin Sheng today's schedule. Qin Sheng glanced at them and said, I won't attend the 2 meetings in the morning. Tell the director's office that I'm going out for a while. I'll be there for the president's meeting in the afternoon. Just do what I told you yesterday and prepare what I want. Okay, I'll inform Mr. Xiao right away. Yin Pan nodded slightly. After staying in the company for a short while, Qin Sheng went to the North Fifth Ring Road to meet Mr. Chow, who still had not paid the debt. He really did not know how capable Mr. Chow was. As a dignified big boss with a net worth of hundreds of millions, why would he make life difficult for a few migrant workers? Qin Sheng remembered that he had told Mr. Chow last night that if he still did not pay the debt this morning, it would not just be a matter of hundreds of thousands. Qin Sheng would have to reason with him. So on his way to work, Qin Sheng had already called Wang Jiangwo. Wang Jiangwo said that there was no news, which made Qin Sheng somewhat angry. Chapter 545. Not even 100 yuan on the way to the North Fifth Ring Road. Qin Sheng did not waste any time. He continued to read the relevant documents and information in the car. He had to seize the time to learn more about the Chang and gang, in case he suddenly had to take charge of something. However, judging from the old man's mood when he came back from Shenzhen, it seemed that he had gained a lot in Shenzhen, which made Qin Sheng feel relieved. It was much better than the feeling of the dark clouds 2 days ago. After more than an hour, they finally arrived at the villa area in the North Fifth Ring Road. Brother Wu and Wang Jiangwo had already arrived. Apart from them, there was also a young man of the same age who followed Wang Jiangwo to Beijing to work. Last night, when Qin Sheng and Wang Jiangwo had fought with those gangsters, this young man had taken the initiative to help. This young man was called Zhang Yong. He was 2 or 3 years younger than Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng only remembered that he often followed these older kids when he was young. Later, he had no impression of him. However, Zhang Yong's house was the closest to where Qin Sheng and the old man lived. His parents used to send food to the old man. Unfortunately, his parents had passed away in a car accident, leaving only him and his sister. His sister had just gone to university in Beijing, so Zhang Yong followed Wang Jiangwo to Beijing to work and take care of his sister, who knew that they would encounter such a thing as soon as they arrived. Wang Jiangwo and Zhang Yong smiled and greeted Qin Sheng when they saw him. Wang Jiangwo was a little flattering. After all, he had been in the society for a long time, so he was very tactful. Moreover, he knew that Qin Sheng was doing well now, so he naturally wanted to make friends with him. Zhang Yong was very dutiful and did not be overly courteous because of Qin Sheng's identity. Although their family used to be close to old Master Qin, that was many years ago, and Qin Sheng might not remember it now. This time, Qin Sheng did not bring many people with him. Apart from Chang Baji and Brother Wu, there were only 4 bodyguards. This was now Qin Sheng's regular arrangement. The 4 bodyguards were also fully under Brother Wu's charge. All the security of the Qin family was under Gong's son Yi's charge. He had trained many talents for this. Brother Wu, is Boss Chow still here? Qin Sheng asked casually. Today, he wanted to see which big boss would make life difficult for a group of migrant workers for a few 100,000. Wouldn't it be a joke? Brother Wu replied in a low voice. He hasn't gone out since he came back last night. Then let's go in and meet this Boss Chow. I guess he's also waiting for us. Being able to take root in Sijio City for so long, he must have some power. Qin Sheng chuckled, but he did not look down on Boss Chow. Although he had gotten the relevant information about Boss Chow, he naturally did not know a lot of things that were not known to others. Brother Wu nodded silently and said, I've already arranged the security here. We can go in directly. Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, let's try peaceful means before resorting to force. Let's see what Boss Chow's attitude is. The 3 cars drove directly to the main entrance of the villa district. Brother Wu went down and asked the security guard to inform Boss Chow. As for whether Boss Chow wanted to see them, he did not know, but he did not care. In the villa, Boss Chow had already woken up. In his 40s, Boss Chow was at the peak of his life. He had a successful career and a happy family. He was definitely a successful person in the eyes of ordinary people. His wife had sent their daughter to school and had not come back yet. She probably went shopping again. Anyway, she was now a standard housewife. Boss Chow did not have any requirements for her, as long as she took good care of his daughter and did not cause him any trouble. After breakfast, Boss Chow drank tea and read in the study until the bodyguard came in and reported, Boss Chow, the security guard at the entrance of the district asked me to inform you that a young man wants to see you. He said he would give you 1 night to pay back the money. You did not give him face, so he had no choice but to pay you a visit. Boss Chow put down the history of the Song dynasty in his hand, squinted his eyes, and stood up. He was really full of confidence. Since he had come to the door, he really wanted to see who the other party was. How dare he be so presumptuous in front of him? So he said, let them in. After receiving the notice, the security guard at the entrance let them in. But he was a little confused. They had already paid the money, but they still had to do something unnecessary. He really did not understand the thinking of the rich. A few minutes later, the 3 cars stopped outside Boss Chow's villa. This villa was quite magnificent, estimated to cost tens of millions. But compared with the Sihiyuan of the Qin family, it was still too far behind. After all, not everyone could afford a Sihiyuan. Only the real rich could afford it. Moreover, the Qin family had several big villas in the suburbs, especially an independent manor at the foot of the mountain that covered an area of more than 100 acres. It was just that no one had been there for a long time. After they got out of the car, Qin Sheng said to the bodyguards behind him, you don't need to go in, just wait outside. The bodyguards nodded. Anyway, they did not think that anything would go wrong. If something really happened, they would rush in as soon as possible. Chang Baji and Brother Wu accompanied Qin Sheng in, while Wang Jiangwo and Zhang Yong followed behind. At the entrance of the villa, Boss Chow's bodyguards had been waiting for a long time. They said very playfully, please. This made Qin Sheng stunned for a moment. He could not help but ask, Brother Wu, are you sure that there is no problem with the information you gave me? Why does it seem that Boss Chow can't wait for us to come? I'm afraid that we have entered a thief's nest by mistake. Brother Wu sneered and said, "He is just deliberately mystifying. He thinks too highly of himself and too little of others." That's true. Boss Chow must think that a few migrant workers know no big shots. They are not enough for him to play with. Qin Sheng thought about it and shook his head with a smile. Wang Jiangwo was stunned. To be honest, he still had doubts about Qin Sheng. After all, he did not know Qin Sheng's background. Think about how powerful a young man who was less than 30 years old could be. This Boss Chow had been in Beijing for many years. It was said that his net worth was hundreds of millions, and he knew many big shots. Qin Sheng might not be his opponent, but now Wang Jiangwo had no choice but to make a desperate attempt. Zhang Yong found a lot of details and also understood the meaning of Qin Sheng and Brother Wu's words. Obviously, they had figured out Boss Chow's background. Because of this, they dared to come to Boss Chow, which meant that Boss Chow's strength was far inferior to theirs. After walking through the main door, Qin Sheng could already see Boss Chow sitting on the sofa in the living room, smoking a cigar. Boss Chow looked very glorious. From his eyes, it could be seen that he really did not take Qin Sheng and the others seriously. The big living room was very magnificent. There were expensive ornaments and oil paintings everywhere. Boss Chow, who was dressed very delicately, looked at Wang Jiangwo and Zhang Yong with a smile and sneered, "You are really haunting me." Although Wang Jiangwo dared to say anything in front of Qin Sheng, in front of Boss Chow, he was more or less afraid. After all, after experiencing being beaten and locked up in the police station, Wang Jiangwo was really a little afraid of Boss Chow. How could he, an ordinary labor contractor, fight with such a rich boss? Zhang Yong, who was more stubborn and stubborn, said angrily, "You should pay for the work. If you owe money, you should pay it back." Boss Chow, why do you have to make life difficult for small people like us? Boss Chow spat out a mouthful of smoke, slowly stood up and sneered, "It is because you're small people." This Boss Chow was really arrogant. Qin Sheng could not stand it anymore. He walked to Boss Chow unhurriedly and said, "It turns out that Boss Chow is a big shot. I finally met a big shot today. You should be the young man who told me last night. I was just thinking about meeting you. I didn't expect that you would come to me." Boss Chow faced Qin Sheng and said, "Didn't he just find a helper? Who was he trying to scare?" At this time, Qin Sheng had already walked in front of Boss Chow. He snorted and said, "That's true. Boss Chow is such a big shot. How could he take a small person like me seriously? Young man, this is Beijing. Don't think that you are too important just because you have made some money. I am not someone you can offend. Don't shoot yourself in the foot." Boss Chow threatened Qin Sheng in an unfriendly tone. Qin Sheng did not pay attention to Boss Chow at all. Instead, he picked up a vase that seemed to be worth some money and said, "Boss Chow, you like to collect. This should be something from Jingda Jun in the late Qing dynasty. It is worth some money." "Oh, you have a good eye." Boss Chow was a little surprised. Qin Sheng picked up the porcelain and looked at it again. Then, under Boss Chow's gaze, he suddenly let go of his hands. The porcelain fell vertically and smashed with a bang. Boss Chow did not expect that the young man in front of him would be so unscrupulous. He pointed at Qin Sheng angrily and said, "You." Qin Sheng still did not pay attention to Boss Chow. Instead, he looked at a painting hanging on the wall. It was a rather abstract oil painting. It should be the work of a contemporary artist. Anyway, Qin Sheng did not know it and could not appreciate it. But Qin Sheng must be worth a lot of money. So he slowly walked over and directly took the painting down. Once again, under Boss Chow's angry and unbelievable eyes, he suddenly kicked the painting into pieces. Boss Chow was stunned by the sudden change. Even Wang Jiangwo and Zhang Yong were shocked. They did not expect Qin Sheng's counterattack to be so sharp. They were at a loss for a moment. How could he ask for money? He was obviously here to smash the place. They were afraid that he would offend Boss Chow. Next, not to mention asking for money, they had to think about how to face Boss Chow's anger. "Ha ha!" Boss Chow suddenly laughed out loud, but the laughter was too harsh. It was obviously the transformation of anger. It was not a laughter from the heart. Qin Sheng squinted at Boss Chow and said, "It seems that Boss Chow likes my performance very much. Young man, I don't care where you come from. If you have the ability today, smash my villa. Then I will really admire you. Boss Chow shouted, gnashing his teeth. Qin Sheng did not act rashly. Instead, he smiled and said, Boss Chow, I remember I said last night that if you don't return the money by this morning, it will not be a problem of money. Obviously, Boss Chow did not take my word seriously. After all, Boss Chow is a big man. So, now I will give Boss Chow another chance. Do you want to return the money or not? 100 yuan should be enough for the owed wages, the loss of working time, the medical expenses, and the mental damage. This is not a big amount of money for Boss Chow. 1 million yuan. Qin Sheng really dared to ask for it. Wang Jiangwo and Zhang Yong were shocked when they heard the number. Even if they were Boss Chow, they would definitely not give it. They only wanted what belonged to them. After hearing Qin Sheng's words, Boss Chow was not angry again. Instead, he laughed and said, 1 million yuan? Why don't you rob a bank? Not to mention 1 million yuan, I will not even give you 100 yuan. Chapter 546. Almost there recently, Qin Sheng felt quite aggrieved. He used to be bullied by others when he had no power and no background. He was miserable and homeless. Later, when he returned to the Qin family, he thought that he could live a safe and secure life with the support of the Qin family and the Zhu family. Who knew that he would still be bullied? The incident in Shanghai was a wake-up call, and Qin Sheng almost lost his life again. So today, facing such a strong but ignorant Boss Chow, Qin Sheng really wanted to shout at him, How can I be bullied by you? Boss Chow, you are so powerful. You don't even want to pay 100 yuan. Then I want to see whether you will pay me or not today. Qin Sheng snorted and then shouted to the people behind him, Smash it. Chang Baji and Brother Wu heard this and immediately started. This kind of black-hearted boss who even cheated the wages of the migrant workers probably earned a lot of money, so they had no scruples. Whoever dares to try it, I will let you go to jail. Boss Chow roared. His voice had already suppressed Qin Sheng's. He did not believe that this young man could do anything. He was not a little boss who had not seen the world. Chang Baji and Brother Wu wouldn't listen to Boss Chow's nonsense. They smashed everything they saw in the living room without hesitation. They smashed everything they saw without any discussion. Wang Jiangwo was frightened by the scene in front of him. Didn't they come to ask for money today? How did it end up like this? If they smashed Boss Chow's villa, not only would they not get the money, they might also have to pay the compensation and go to jail. Zhang Yong did not intend to fight at first, but seeing that Chang Baji and Brother Wu had started a fight, he did not have any scruples. Moreover, he had suffered a lot from Boss Chow before, so he quickly joined Chang Baji and Brother Wu's team. Stop them. Boss Chow saw that these people did not take him seriously at all and had already started to smash things, so he had to shout at his bodyguards. Chang Baji and Brother Wu didn't listen to Boss Chow's words, but the bodyguards who were paid did not dare to be sloppy. They rushed to Chang Baji and Brother Wu without hesitation. However, this was completely looking for their own death. They were not opponents of the same level at all. In just a few minutes, all of them were knocked down. The bodyguards of the Qin family in the car outside heard the noise inside and immediately rushed in, afraid that something would happen to the young master. Soon, the scene was under control. Only Boss Chow, who was trembling with anger, was left standing there alone and helpless. He shouted again, Call the police. I will call the police. I will let you pay the price. Sitting on the sofa with his legs crossed, Qin Sheng snorted and said, Whatever you want. After Boss Chow left, he dialed the police number and exaggerated the situation on the phone, for fear that the police couldn't arrive in a short time. After Boss Chow finished the call, Qin Sheng looked at Brother Wu subconsciously. Brother Wu was already ready. He made a call right after Boss Chow. The police had not arrived yet. Chang Baji, Brother Wu, and Zhang Yong were still smashing things there. Boss Chow could only watch as they smashed things. He could not stop them at all. He guessed that they would end up like those bodyguards. He could only stare at Qin Sheng fiercely. Where did this young man come from? Why was he so unscrupulous? He still did not believe that this young man was more powerful than him. When the police arrived, he would definitely make this young man pay the price. 1 million should be enough. Chang Baji, Brother Wu, and Zhang Yong stopped immediately. They had not been so happy for a long time. Maybe they would not have such a chance in the future. After all, not many people would be as unlucky as Boss Chow. Chang Baji, Brother Wu, and Zhang Yong immediately stopped. It had been a long time since they had enjoyed themselves to their heart's content. They were afraid that they would not have such an opportunity in the future. After all, not many people would be as unlucky and blind as Boss Chow. Qin Sheng got up slowly and walked to Boss Chow, who was sitting on the floor. Boss Chow, shall we talk? Did you enjoy smashing it? Chow Chow asked while gnashing his teeth with a livid expression. Qin Sheng shrugged and said, "It should be. Why don't you give it a try?" You. Boss Chow had organized a lot of vicious words, but he was so angry that he could not say anything. He pointed at Qin Sheng helplessly. Qin Sheng lit a cigarette and said meaningfully, "Boss Chow, I don't know how you got to where you are now. You've been living like a dog. Do you think that a few migrant workers from other places can know some big shots? I'm just an ordinary young man. After all, Boss Chow, the people you usually see are either big bosses with a net worth of hundreds of millions or leaders of the city or district. Am I right?" Boss Chow did not say anything. Qin Sheng's words suddenly made him realize that something was wrong. It seemed that what Qin Sheng said was true. He had always thought so. If I didn't come to you, I'm afraid you wouldn't pay them back. I don't understand why a big boss like you would refuse to pay such a small amount of money. Is your P2P company in the North 5th Ring Road going to collapse and the capital chain is going to break soon? Or is it that the blockchain virtual currency company you partner with in Wangjing has no one to take over and you can't burn money anymore? Or your film company in Yizhuang doesn't have any projects recently? After all, the previous projects lost a lot of money? Qin Sheng did not intend to play around with Boss Chow anymore. He exposed all of Boss Chow's assets. He sneered and said, "That's right. Boss Chow, this is a high-risk industry. You can run away at any time. The longer you delay, the better. Who can find you then?" Boss Chow's face was already extremely ugly. He did not expect this young man to have investigated his background so clearly. For what he said, Qin Sheng did not take him seriously at all. That was why he dared to make trouble for him. Boss Chow began to sweat all over. This young man was too scary. Who was he? But you didn't expect to meet me. You didn't expect to fall into the hands of a group of migrant workers, right? I gave you 2 chances, but you didn't cherish them. Don't blame me then. Qin Sheng sighed. Boss Chow still did not speak. He was still doubtful of this young man. Or it could be said that he was resentful and did not want to bow down and admit defeat. Or it could be said that he did not think this young man was more powerful than him. They were in a deadlock. A few minutes later, the patrol police who first received Boss Chow's call arrived. A group of 3 people walked into the villa. When they came out, they had already received a call from the director of the branch office. They only needed to control the scene and did not need to do anything else. However, when the patrol police came in, Boss Chow seemed to have found a savior. He immediately rushed over and pulled the patrol police, shouting, "Police, these people broke into my house and wanted to kill me. Arrest them. Let go, don't touch me. Stand aside," the leading patrol police scolded. Boss Chow felt that something was wrong. He wanted to say something, but held back in the end. He could only stand not far away, feeling wronged. His last hope was shattered. The bodyguards of the Qin family had returned to the car. There were only Qin Sheng, Chang Baji, and the others in the villa. Of course, Boss Chow's bodyguard were also there. The police did not ask anything and just stood at the door. A few minutes later, 2 police cars stopped at the door of the villa. A few more policemen came into the villa. 2 of them looked like leaders. Boss Chow became excited again when he saw them. The few policemen just now were patrol police. Obviously, they did not know who he was. But the one in front of him was the director of the branch office. He had eaten with him several times and had a good personal relationship. "Director Liu, you are finally here. You have to help me." Boss Chow ran over again, but he was stopped after a few steps. Boss Chow looked at the old acquaintance with a confused look. The leader seemed to think of something. He walked quickly to Boss Chow and whispered, "Lao Chow, listen to me. No matter what happens today, you have to admit it. Otherwise, you will have to bear the consequences." Boss Chow was not really stupid. After all, he had been in the society for so many years. When he heard the words of this old acquaintance, he knew that everything he had guessed and worried about had come true. This young man was really influential. Even Director Liu, who knew his background, was so afraid of him. What else could he do? Boss Chow sat on the ground with a broken heart. He did not expect that he would cause such big trouble. He did not expect that these migrant workers would know such a big shot. He also did not expect that such a big shot would stand up for them. This was 2F** King unbelievable. Then why do they still work? Director Liu, long time no see. After seeing Director Liu, Brother Wu smiled and greeted him. Of course they knew each other. Qin Sheng let Brother Wu handle the following things. After all, he knew the leader here and often dealt with such things. Qin Sheng believed that Brother Wu could handle it well. After a few minutes, Brother Wu walked quickly to Qin Sheng and said, "Young master, you can go back first. I will handle the rest." Qin Sheng patted Brother Wu's shoulder and nodded with a smile. Then he walked to the leader and said in a low voice, "Sorry to trouble you." After hearing that Brother Wu was the young master, Chief Liu knew the identity of the young man in front of him. His background was really frightening, so he didn't dare to go over and disturb him because it was not a relationship he could build. "It's my duty." Director Liu smiled and said. Qin Sheng smiled and nodded. Then he waved to Wang Jiangwo and Zhang Yong, indicating that they should leave with him. After a few steps, he turned back and walked to Boss Chow. He smiled and said, "Boss Chow, you must want to know who I am." Boss Chow did not dare to speak because he was now full of fear for the young man in front of him. He was afraid that he would cause more trouble. Moreover, his P2P internet finance company and blockchain virtual currency company were in the gray area. If he was not careful, he would lose everything. Qin Sheng leaned slightly and whispered in Boss Chow's ear, "My name is Qin Sheng, non-executive director of Chong and Group. If you're not convinced, you can come to me at any time." After saying this, Qin Sheng stood up and left, ignoring Boss Chow, who was sitting on the ground in shock. Of course, Boss Chow did not know who Qin Sheng was. Chapter 547. What did he mean? Qin Sheng had the ability to put on a strong front, to deal with Mr. Chow, who only knew how to take advantage of ordinary people. Qin Sheng only needed to use the identity of the Chong and Group. After all, the Chong and Group was a big shot in the domestic capital market. What people feared most was its unfathomable background. Therefore, the identity of a non-executive director was enough to crush Mr. Chow. Mr. Chow did not doubt Qin Sheng's words at all. This young man dared to be so unscrupulous and directly went to his house to smash and ask for money. If he didn't have a strong background, no one would believe it. Moreover, the attitude of this branch leader, who was somewhat familiar with him, had already proved it. Even this leader was very sensible and did not go over to talk to him. It was not difficult to guess that this young man's identity was distinguished. In the end, whether he believed it or not, he just needed to check it out. Qin Sheng left with Chang Baji, while Brother Wu stayed at the scene with Wang Jiangwo and Zhang Yong to make statements that definitely could not break the normal procedure. Wang Jiangwo was somewhat worried and did not know what to do next. What he was most worried about was whether he could get the money back. After all, what happened today was beyond his imagination. Therefore, he said awkwardly, "Qin Sheng, can we still get the money back?" Zhang Yong, who seemed to be quiet, was much smarter than Wang Jiangwo. After all, he had been in society for a long time. He used to hang around with a big brother in Xi'an City for a period of time. After his parents passed away, he began to behave himself. Zhang Yong was afraid that Qin Sheng would think that Wang Jiangwo was long-winded, so he pulled him and whispered, "Brother, don't ask anymore." Qin Sheng smiled at them gently, indicating that they could rest assured. Then he left with Chang Baji. He did not need to worry about the rest of the things. After leaving the North 5th Ring Road, Qin Sheng planned to rush back to the company before noon. He promised Yaya that he would take her to the World Trade Center for a big meal at noon. However, when he arrived at the 3rd Ring Road, he received a call from Song Jiqiu. Qin Sheng thought that Song Jiqiu had returned to Tsingtao, but he did not expect that she was still in Beijing. As for the meeting that night, Qin Sheng was quite embarrassed. He did not expect that Song Jiqiu and Song Ruyu were cousins, although they were not very close. Thinking about what had happened between him and Song Jiqiu, Qin Sheng was not sure whether Song Ruyu knew. If she knew, would her impression of him be damaged? Song Jiqiu had stayed at Song Ruyu's place on the first day she had arrived in Beijing. After that, she had stayed in the hotel all the time. On the one hand, her relationship with Song Ruyu was not as close as people thought. On the other hand, she had some opinions about the Song family in Beijing. Although the Song family and the Song family were from the same branch, the Song family in Beijing had never taken the Song family in Shandong seriously. Song. She know that. Sheng Song, she said. She song, she say. She to Sheng went in with she. With Song, she. It happened to be lunchtime. Song Jiqiu found a Western-style restaurant with good reviews nearby. When Qin Sheng arrived, she had already ordered dishes there. She knew that Qin Sheng was not interested in Western-style food, but he chose this restaurant on purpose. Obviously, he was still resentful. The weather was getting hotter and hotter. Although it was still some time before summer, many beauties on the street began to wear cool and sexy clothes. Today, Song Jiqiu wore an intellectual gray dress. Coupled with delicate makeup, she was really pleasing to the eye. The waiter took Qin Sheng to Song Jiqiu. Song Jiqiu squinted at Qin Sheng and snorted. Alas, first young master Qin, you really forget the old when you meet the new. I guess you have been surrounded by beauties since you came back to Beijing. You didn't contact me if I didn't take the initiative to contact you. After Qin Sheng sat down, he said casually, I heard that one's appearance is born from one's heart. A mean woman will become uglier and uglier. Song Jiqiu stared at Qin Sheng and said, Who are you calling mean? I've been in Beijing for so many days. Have you ever asked me? Can't you let me say something? Okay. Say whatever you want, Qin Sheng said helplessly. He really could not offend a woman, especially one he had an ambiguous relationship with in the past. Song Jiqiu felt relieved. She squinted and said, I have ordered the dishes. Anyway, you don't like Western food. I will order whatever you want. You just need to pay the bill. Qin Sheng was too lazy to refute her. He could afford it. He was not a freeloader anymore. Moreover, Song Jiqiu had taken care of him a lot. He was willing to spend as much as possible. Song Jiqiu suddenly asked, What's the relationship between you and my cousin? Qin Sheng was stunned for a few seconds. Then he replied, What's wrong? Why do you ask that all of a sudden? We're just ordinary friends who haven't known each other for a long time. Are you really ordinary friends? Song Jiqiu said dubiously. It seemed that her cousin Song Ruyu did not mean to ask Qin Sheng many questions these days. Song Jiqiu could not help but suspect that if her cousin had an ambiguous relationship with Qin Sheng, she would have no chance at all. First of all, Qin Sheng was the young master of the Qin family and the future successor of the Chong and branch. The Qin family and the Song family were old friends. Obviously, her cousin and Qin Sheng were a perfect match. Secondly, the relationship between the Song family in Beijing and the Song family in Shandong determined that she could not compete with her cousin for a man. Otherwise, the whole family would oppose it. Finally, there was the comparison between her and her cousin. Song Jiqiu felt that she was completely defeated. Her cousin was so excellent that she was dwarfed by her. Qin Sheng was speechless. How could I lie to you? What are you thinking about every day? Oh, that's good. Song Jiqiu replied with satisfaction. However, she seemed to forget that Qin Sheng had told her that he already had a girlfriend. In other words, as long as it was not her cousin Song Ruyu, Song Jiqiu thought that she might have chance. After the dishes were served, Song Jiqiu and Qin Sheng chatted while eating. Song Jiqiu said that she had finished her business and would go back to Tsingtao today. Qin Sheng just said, Okay. Song Jiqiu was so angry that she snorted, but there was nothing she could do. Qin Sheng said that he had been busy recently and would visit her when he was free. He also apologized to the uncles of the Song family, by the way. After all, he had done those ridiculous things before. Song Jiqiu said with a smile, Those trivial things have passed. I heard from my cousin that you have joined the Chang'an branch. Is that true? Song Ziqiu asked casually. She really cared about Qin Sheng because her cousin had told her something about the Chang'an branch. Obviously, Qin Sheng was under a lot of pressure at this time. Qin Sheng nodded and said, "Yes." "Are you under a lot of pressure?" Song Ziqiu asked in a low voice. She wanted to say more, but finally gave up. She knew that Qin Sheng was not that kind of pretentious man. Qin Sheng laughed and said, "It's not pressure at all. You've been like this for so many years. You will gradually get used to it. However, I'm afraid that it will be a little difficult to surpass him." Song Ziqiu didn't care about those trivial things. She only cared about Qin Sheng and said softly, "Anyway, take care of yourself." Qin Sheng nodded and said, "You too." If they couldn't help each other, they would forget each other in Jianghu. Not everyone had to make such a choice. Sometimes, they could just be pretentious and follow their heart. After lunch, Song Ziqiu went to the airport. Qin Sheng was ready to go back to the company. When they parted, they hugged each other gently. This hug was not necessarily to let go of each other, but to be reluctant to part with each other. After returning to the company, Qin Sheng attended 2 meetings in the afternoon, both of which were held by the executives of the group. However, Qin Chang'an did not attend either of them. Qin Sheng attended the meetings as a routine and did not speak. He listened carefully and took notes in silence. At this stage, he was just learning and did not need to participate in anything. When he returned to the office, Yin Pan walked in quickly and said, "Chairman Qin, the chairman asked me to inform you that the chairman asked you to attend an event at the China World Hotel tomorrow morning." "What event?" Qin Sheng was confused. What kind of event did the old man ask him to attend in person? Yin Pan said honestly, "It's a signing event between China CITIC Bank and our subsidiary and a credit granting ceremony." Qin Sheng was more or less confused. It was an event of the subsidiary, so he must be asked to go to the platform. This should not be the case. Therefore, Qin Sheng asked casually, "Who else will attend?" "Mr. Chang, 2 vice presidents, and several people in charge of the subsidiary," Yin Pan explained. Qin Sheng frowned. According to his understanding of some rules, a subsidiary's event did not need so many executives to attend. Moreover, if he went there, it meant that he represented Qin Chang'an. This had a deeper meaning, but Qin Sheng had not figured it out yet. Just after 6 o'clock, before Qin Sheng was ready to get off work, Yi ran to Qin Sheng's office and said that Qin Sheng stood her up at noon and had to make it up to her in the evening. Qin Sheng agreed, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. However, before he walked out of the company, Wang Jiangwo called him. He told Qin Sheng excitedly that Boss Chow had just returned the money, which was much more than the salary he owed them. He directly gave them 1 million yuan. After hearing this, Qin Sheng felt that Boss Chow was quite smart. Finally, he lowered his head and returned the money according to his request. Otherwise, the consequences would not be so simple. Wang Jiangwo then said that he would treat Qin Sheng to a meal. Qin Sheng politely refused. However, Wang Jiangwo said that the villagers had given him a task, so he had to treat him to a meal. Otherwise, he would not take the money. Qin Sheng had no choice but to agree. Qin Sheng hung up the phone and explained to Yi. However, Yi was so angry that she gnashed her teeth. Qin Sheng had to say that if he did not mind the trouble, he could go with him. Anyway, they would go home after the meal. Chapter 548. The mind of a nobody. In fact, Brotherhood already asked around. Qin Sheng knew why Boss Chow delayed his wages. It was mainly because Wang Jiangwo had flirted with Boss Chow's mistress when he was renovating the villa. Boss Chow's bodyguard found out and told him. Boss Chow bore a grudge and delayed his wages on purpose. Men all liked beautiful women. Wang Jiangwo was no exception. Moreover, Boss Chow's mistress seduced Wang Jiangwo on purpose. Maybe she was just teasing Wang Jiangwo. An ordinary man like Wang Jiangwo was not her type. This villa was originally given to his mistress by Boss Chow, so she often came here and became familiar with Wang Jiangwo. She would flirt with Wang Jiangwo every time, but there was no real tension between the two. Most men were very possessive, especially successful men. After Boss Chow knew it, he was naturally jealous. That was why he made things difficult for Wang Jiangwo. Qin Sheng thought it was nothing. Wang Jiangwo was too stupid and naive. But what happened later was Boss Chow's fault. It was fine if he made things difficult for Wang Jiangwo. There was no need to make things difficult for a nobody like Wang Jiangwo. Moreover, there were other migrant workers. They were all innocent, and it was not easy for them to earn money. Therefore, Qin Sheng wanted to stand up for the villagers. Yaya had been to the old village and knew some of Qin Sheng's past and Shin. She was not a stranger to the villagers. Anyway, she had nothing to do after work. After returning home, she did not have much contact with those friends she had met abroad. After all, her identity was relatively special. There were definitely a lot of men who wanted to get close to her. Maybe it was because he was about to get his wages, and it was more than he had imagined. Wang Jiangwo was in a good mood. After discussing with the villagers, he chose a good restaurant to treat Qin Sheng to dinner. After all, it was because of Qin Sheng that they got the wages that were owed. The villagers did not have any opinion on this. Moreover, Qin Sheng was so successful now. If an ordinary restaurant was too low class, they were afraid that Qin Sheng would be angry. Wang Jiangwo did not know Qin Sheng, so he thought a little more. He usually came into contact with labor contractors or various decoration material shop owners, so he was more or less a little narrow-minded. Zhang Yong saw it more clearly than him. After all, he had been in Xi'an before. He felt that Qin Sheng did not care about these trivial things at all. The only thing that could make Qin Sheng take them seriously was his identity. Although Qin Sheng did not live in the village for long, he still recognized this identity. Usually, Wang Jiangwo would discuss everything with Zhang Yong. Naturally, it was the same this time. Before Qin Sheng arrived, they were already waiting at the restaurant. Wang Jiangwo said with some emotion, "I didn't expect Qin Sheng to be so successful now." You guys don't know how humble Boss Chow, who was arrogant in front of us a few days ago, was when he gave us the money today. He kept calling me Brother Wang, I'm sorry, I was wrong, and so on. It was so satisfying. A villager asked casually, "What do you think Qin Sheng does? He's so young, but he's already so powerful. We don't even dare to think about it. I don't know what he's been through all these years. What do you think Qin Sheng is doing? He is so young and so powerful. We don't dare to think about it. I don't know what he's been through all these years." Anyway, we all know that when old Master Qin brought Qin Sheng to live in the village, everyone knew that old Master Qin was definitely not an ordinary person. His imposing manner was incomparable to those old men in the village. Besides, Qin Sheng went to Xi'an to study later. I heard that his relative was very powerful, probably even more powerful than Boss Chow. So it is not surprising that Qin Sheng can achieve what he has today. Another more gossipy villager echoed. He had heard a lot of rumors during the spring festival. Someone asked cautiously, "Do you think he will recognize us if we ask him for help in the future? For example, our children are looking for jobs in Beijing. Laonyo, don't push your luck. Even if he is willing, we can't do this. Moreover, if we do this kind of thing often, it will only make people feel disgusted. Don't lose the village's face." Someone snorted. Wang Jiangwo listened to these villagers and felt somewhat disdainful in his heart. A small potato was a small potato. His thinking was so simple and direct. But wasn't he the same? He was just thinking a little bit higher. As long as he could build a relationship with Qin Sheng, with Qin Sheng's resources and connections, he could get more jobs in the future and make it bigger and bigger. However, Wang Jiangwo was not thinking about this now. He was thinking about what to do with the extra money. So he whispered in Zhang Yong's ear, "Yongzi, what do you think we should do with the extra money? Should we divide it among ourselves or give it all to Qin Sheng?" But it seems that Qin Sheng is not short of this money. Of course, Wang Jiangwo hoped that the money would be divided equally. In this way, everyone could benefit, and he could get more or less. This was an unexpected wealth, which was almost the same as the wages owed to them. Zhang Yong knew what kind of person Wang Jiangwo was. Sometimes, he liked to take advantage of others. Although Boss Chow had gone too far this time, the cause was not Wang Jiangwo's flirting with that woman. He thought too highly of himself, so Zhang Yong had some opinions about Wang Jiangwo. "Brother, It doesn't matter if you still want to have a deep contact with Brother Chin in the future. You have to be kind. After all, it was Brother Chin who asked for the money. Otherwise, we wouldn't even have a dime. Boss Chow is afraid of Brother Chin, and the extra money is also for Brother Chin's sake. Whether Brother Chin needs the money or not, whether he wants the money or not, whether we give it to him or not is a kind of attitude. As for how he deals with it, it's his business. Zhang Yong was very serious about his own reasons. After mingling in this society for so long, he understood a principle, and that was that he must abide by certain rules. Wang Jingwo thought for a moment and thought that Zhang Yong was right, but he was still a little reluctant to give up the money. In the end, he could only sigh and say, "Then let's see how Qin Sheng deals with it." A few minutes later, when everyone was still chatting, Qin Sheng walked into the box with Qin Jing. Everyone quickly stood up and greeted Qin Sheng. They were very surprised at the beauty beside Qin Sheng, thinking that she was Qin Sheng's girlfriend. Many of them stared at her, but did not dare to go too far. Qin Sheng did not want to be misunderstood, so he took the initiative to introduce her as his sister, Qin Jing. Qin Jing smiled and greeted everyone. Although everyone was wondering when Qin Sheng had a sister, they did not ask. After Qin Sheng and Qin Jing sat down, Wang Jingwo asked the waiter to start serving the dishes. After dinner, everyone toasted and thanked Qin Sheng for helping them get back their owed wages. The villagers were grateful from the bottom of their hearts, which made Qin Sheng feel a little embarrassed. After all, seeing these elders in their 40s and 50s drinking and smiling in front of him made him feel very uncomfortable. At the end of the dinner, Wang Jingwo, who was sitting next to Qin Sheng, took the initiative and said, "Qin Sheng, this time we can get back our owed wages, thanks to you. But Boss Chow gave us 1,000,000 yuan, and now we have so much extra money. Without you, we might not be able to get the money, so we will give you the extra money first, as a token of our sincerity." When Zhang Yong heard this, his face immediately changed. He quickly pulled Wang Jingwo and gave him a look. He just wanted to tell Wang Jingwo that this matter should be told to Qin Sheng in private and not tonight, which was equivalent to putting Qin Sheng on the fire rack. Qin Sheng definitely could not accept it. If he accepted it, what would the villagers think? You're such a big boss, and you still lack this little money. Although everyone felt that it was reasonable, some people might not think twice about it. After all, this was not a little money. However, Qin Sheng did not think much about it. He had already expected this situation, and he had already thought about how to deal with the money. He smiled and said, "Jangwo, I did not do much, and I should not take this money. Moreover, I'm not short of this money. It is not easy for you to work here, and what you earn is hard-earned money. Share the extra equally." After Wang Jingwo heard this, his face was full of joy. The other villagers were also looking forward to it very much. However, they still very tactfully said that how could they do this, and that the money should be given to him. They were all waiting for Qin Sheng to accept it after repeatedly rejecting it. However, Zhang Yong suddenly said, "Brother Qin, this money is originally extra. It is enough for us to get the salary that belongs to us. If you don't want the rest, we should not take it. Why don't we deal with it this way? A part of it will be divided equally among everyone, as Boss Chow's compensation for everyone's medical expenses and the loss of working time. As for the rest, we can donate it to many lonely old people and children from poor families in the village." Zhang Yang's idea was also a spur-of-the-moment idea. On the one hand, Qin Sheng was famous, and, on the other hand, the villagers would also get more money. It was the best of both worlds. However, when Qin Sheng heard this, his eyes lit up. He was quite appreciative of this child who was a few years younger than him. He already knew what kind of situation Zhang Yang's family was in now. Zhang Yong was not married, had no car or house, and had to support his sister's college education. It was really rare and commendable for him to be able to keep a sense of propriety at this time. After all, if it was divided equally, everyone would get tens of thousands of yuan, and it might take them half a year to earn it back. The cook duck flew away just like that. Wang Jingwo was not interested in Zhang Yang's suggestion. He thought to himself that since Qin Sheng was so rich, if he wanted to be a good person, why didn't he pay for it himself? Some villagers also thought so, and some supported Zhang Yang's suggestion. This was the way of thinking of small people. Yesterday, they were still worried about the delayed wages, for fear that they could not get the money that belonged to them. Now that they had gotten what they should get, they were greedy to get more. Little did they know that the money did not belong to them. At this moment, they were gnashing their teeth because they could not get the extra money. Wang Jiangwo wanted to open his mouth to reject Zhang Yang's suggestion, but Qin Sheng did not give him a chance. He nodded and praised. Yongzi, your suggestion is very good. Since you have made this suggestion, I will add 1 million yuan from my own pocket to help the lonely elderly and children who can't afford to go to school in the village. Just take it as a token of my appreciation. I will leave this matter to you. When you go back, contact the secretary of the village to calculate it. After hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up. It did not occur to them that Qin Sheng would pay 1 million yuan from his own pocket, which was not a small amount. Zhang Yong did not expect that his casual words would actually get Qin Sheng's approval and trust. This was a big matter of more than 1 million yuan, which he had never experienced before. Hence, he was somewhat worried and said, Brother Qin, you'd better let Brother Wang handle this matter. He is more capable than me. I am afraid that I will make some mistakes. Zhang Yong's words were very beautiful. Not only did he show his humility, but he also made Wang Jiangwo proud. Wang Jiangwo took the opportunity to continue this topic. It did not occur to him that Qin Sheng would pay 1 million yuan more. This was a matter of more than 1 million yuan, and there were many benefits in it. As long as he was responsible for it, not to mention that he would have a good relationship with the secretary of the village, many people in the village would be looking for him. However, Qin Sheng still did not give him a chance. He smiled and said, Young people should exercise. I believe in you. Just do it. Of course, I will send someone to cooperate with you. Zhang Yong still wanted to refuse. He was afraid that Qin Sheng's decision would make him offend Wang Jiangwo's side. The villagers did not take more money, and it was estimated that they would be dissatisfied with him. He might be isolated. After all, he had gained the most, which was not what he wanted. Qin Sheng directly raised his glass and said, Come, come, come. I'm really happy to see you all. I also hope that you will get better and better in the future. Let's drink one last glass. After drinking the last glass of wine, Qin Sheng prepared to go back to the Sihiyuan of the Qin family with Qin Jing. The crowd walked them to the gate. When they were about to leave, Qin Sheng suddenly shouted, Yongzi, you go with me. Chapter 549. Changing Fate. Qin Sheng took the initiative to invite Yongzi to go with him. Not to mention Wang Jiangwo and the others. Even Qin Jing and Chang Baji were confused. Was it because Yongzi's proposal satisfied Qin Sheng? Obviously not. Qin Sheng didn't stay in the village for long. He was fostered to the Lin family and went to school not long after Old Master took him to Xin. He only went back to the village on weekends or during winter and summer vacations. However, Qin Sheng still had feelings for the village and remembered his childhood playmates and villagers. Besides, many villagers had helped them, especially the Zhang family, which was the closest to where Qin Sheng and Old Master lived. Old Master had passed away many years ago. Qin Sheng also left Xi and returned to Beijing. However, he still had feelings for the village and hadn't returned the favor. However, he left Xian in a hurry the last 2 times and didn't stay in the village for long. Qin Sheng wanted to do something for the village, more or less. He couldn't let the villagers criticize him and say, Look at old Master Qin, he always ate and drank from others when he was young. Now that he grew up and became successful, he forgot our village. The Zhang family was the one who helped old Master Qin the most. When old Master Qin arrived in the village, he had no relatives and cried without food. The Zhang family was the first to send food to him. Zhang Yang's mother was kind and felt pity for Qin Sheng, who was still a child. Later, many villagers came to help. Qin Sheng didn't have much impression of Zhang Yang. After all, Zhang Yang, who was a few years younger than him, was still a child of 2 or 3 years old at that time. Zhang Yang's sister was not even born yet. When he grew up, he occasionally went back to the village, but he only remembered that he followed the older kids. Later, he went back less and less and spent most of his time with his grandfather. Therefore, Qinsheng was not familiar with Zhang Yong. If Wang Jiangwo and other villagers didn't introduce Zhang Yong to him, Qinsheng wouldn't know that he was that little boy. Qinsheng thought about returning the favor. Moreover, he knew from the villagers that Zhang Yong's parents died in a car accident, and Zhang Yong was now working to study for his sister's college. However, Qinsheng wouldn't help blindly. Although he had enough ability now, he could totally change Zhang Yong's life if he wanted to. Teach a man to fish is better than teach him to fish. Therefore, Qinsheng had to know what kind of person Zhang Yong was. After all, he didn't know Zhang Yong very well. Qinsheng was very satisfied with Zhang Yong from his contact and observation in the past 2 days, as well as the details of Zhang Yong's performance, especially the proposal just now. Qinsheng felt that Zhang Yong could be cultivated completely. Although Zhang Yong could not stay by his side to work for him, he would definitely get better and better. Qinsheng could do something for the village with Zhang Yong's proposal. Although he couldn't stay and work for him, he would get better and better. Seeing that Zhang Yong got into Qinsheng's car, Wang Jiangwo's eyes were full of envy and jealousy. He did not expect that he would end up helping others. He had thought that among these people, he was the most promising one, so he would pay special attention to Qinsheng. However, he did not expect that it was not the case at all. Sheng won for Wang and said, "I Sheng. 1 Zhang is he, Sheng 2 has Sheng Zheng. Yongzi, you're really shrewd," Wang Jiangwo muttered to himself. Tonight, he had really lost both his son and his soldiers. If it wasn't for Zhang Yong's suggestion, it wouldn't have ended up like this. Zhang Yong was in the bodyguard's car at the back. Qinsheng also did not want to sit in the same car as Zhang Yong. On the way back, Qinsheng was still worried and said, "Lao Chong, find someone to go back to Xian and ask about Zhang Yong. In this way, I can rest assured and let him do things." "You want to train him?" Chang Baji smiled. Qinsheng said honestly, "When the old master and I were in Xian, Zhang Yong's parents helped us a lot. Now that his parents are gone, I can only return the favor to him. Besides, it's not easy for him. He works part-time to support his sister's college education. I will help him as much as I can, but it depends on his character and ability." Chang Baji nodded and said, "Yes, I'll ask Xiao Wu to arrange it now." Qin Jing was not interested in this. She only felt that her brother was becoming more and more like an uncle, but he had not reached the momentum of an uncle yet. She was afraid that he would become more and more tired. Since Zhang Yong came to Beijing, he had not been to the downtown area except for his sister's school in Haidian, let alone strolling around. On the way, he was enjoying the night view of Sijio City and feeling the charm of this city. After the car arrived at the Sihiwan of the Qin family, Qinsheng's car directly drove in. The bodyguard's car stopped at the door. Zhang Yong was brought in. After getting out of the car, Qinsheng said to Zhang Yong, "This is my home in Beijing." Zhang Yong had no idea about the Sihiwan, but he had heard that it was very valuable. He still did not know why Qinsheng brought him here. He just followed Qinsheng inside at a loss. This should be the first time that Qinsheng brought a friend back to the Sihiwan of the Qin family. It was not the kind of rich playboy of the same level or his former friends that others thought. Instead, it was a young man who could not be more ordinary. He was just a migrant worker working in Beijing now. The front yard of the Sihiwan of the Qin family was very simple. It could only park a few cars. After passing through the archway of the front yard and entering the middle yard, it was a different world. Zhang Yong's eyes widened in an instant, and he was even more at a loss. The bodyguards and servants in the Sihiwan immediately walked toward them and asked them if they had eaten and so on. Of course, Zhang Yong was frightened by the scene, but he still tried his best to be neither humble nor overbearing. Today, he just took it as a chance to see the world. When they walked to the door of the main hall, it was a new world inside. It was really luxurious beyond imagination. There were all kinds of exquisite furniture and ornaments, which were far more luxurious than those in Boss Chow's house. The servants had already prepared slippers for them. Qin Sheng and Qin Jing both changed into slippers. After entering the middle yard, Chang Baji said hello and went to rest directly. Recently, he had been living in the Sihiyuan. Zhang Yong was a little embarrassed because his clothes and shoes were a little dirty. After entering the door, they dirted the carpet, which made him feel very embarrassed. As for the slippers prepared by the servants, Zhang Yong was even more embarrassed to change them. Because his feet were too dirty and his socks had 2 holes in them, he was not willing to buy new ones. Seeing Zhang Yong's embarrassment, Qin Sheng said casually, "Yongzi, you don't have to return it. Just come in." After Qin Jing came in, she greeted Qin Sheng and said, "Brother, you talk. I'm a little sleepy. I'm going to rest." Hearing the noise downstairs, Gongsun came down and said with some concern, "Why are you back so late? The old man has asked you several times." Qin Sheng explained casually, "I took Iya to have dinner. Is the old man back?" "Already," Gongsun said truthfully. Originally, he was also going to rest. It was rare for him to sleep so early. However, Qin Sheng and Qin Jing had not come home yet, so he was somewhat worried. Qin Sheng said in surprise, "Why are you so early today?" Gongsun deliberately kept Qin Sheng guessing. Is it because people are in high spirits when they encounter happy events? Qin Sheng asked curiously, "What happy event?" "I don't know about this," Gongsun said happily. After saying that, he turned around and went upstairs. He did not forget to nod at Zhang Yong, who was not far away. However, he did not know Zhang Yong's identity. At the same time, he told Qin Sheng to sleep early and not to forget the event at the China World Hotel tomorrow morning. Zhang Yong had been standing there. Qin Sheng had asked him to sit first, but he still did not dare to sit down. When Qin Sheng turned around, he realized it. So he said, "Yongzi, can you still drink? Why don't we drink in the yard?" "Okay." Zhang Yong smiled and nodded. He did not dare to say anything more. Therefore, Qin Sheng took Zhang Yong to the yard and asked the kitchen to prepare a few dishes to go with the wine. He also asked the servants to bring some imported German beer from the wine cellar. Anyway, Qin Chanan's wine cellar was not short of wine. "I heard from them that your sister is now studying at a university in Beijing." Qin Sheng asked casually. "Yes, she is only a freshman." Speaking of his sister, Zhang Yong was extremely proud. He dropped out of high school to work and did not go to a university, which made his parents very disappointed. However, his sister was very good at studying and even went to a famous university. She was the first person in the whole village to rely on, which was at the level of Tsinghua University and Peking University. She was a celebrity in the village and made the whole Zhang family proud. Unfortunately, his parents could not see her anymore. Qin Sheng chatted casually with Zhang Yong and said, "Which university? I have forgotten what she looks like." "Tsinghua University," Zhang Yong said with a smile in his eyes. When he said the 4 words, he was even more proud, as if he was more excited than going to a university. Qin Sheng did not expect that Zhang Yong's sister was studying at Tsinghua University, which could be said to be very outstanding. So he said in surprise, "I did not expect that the girl in my memory is so outstanding. I am studying at the School of Economics and Management of Tsinghua University recently. I will go to see my little sister when I have time. If anything happens in the future, I can take care of her, so you don't have to worry." Hearing this, Zhang Yong said happily, "Okay, thank you, Brother Qin. I will give you your number later." Qin Sheng was so successful now. With Qin Sheng's words, Zhang Yong thought that when his sister graduated in the future, she might be able to find a very good job with Qin Sheng's help. Maybe she could stay in Beijing. In that case, his parents could really rest in peace. "Yongzi, don't be so restrained in front of me. I'm not a big shot. You could just treat me as a big brother. Besides, when I was a child in the village, I often ate at your house. Uncle Zhang and Annie also helped me and Grandpa a lot. I will remember all these in my heart. Now that Uncle Zhang and Annie Zhang are gone, I can only return this favor to you and your sister. Of course, the premise is how you are. After 2 days of observation, I can see that you are very good, which is also the reason why I brought you to my house. In contrast, Wang Jiangwo is too smart and a bit more Philistine, which is not what I like." Qin Sheng said honestly. Zhang Yong was somewhat touched and said, "Brother Qin, thank you for your trust. I just do what I should do and say what I should say." Qin Sheng continued to say, "Your proposal today is very good. I have always wanted to do something for the village, which can be regarded as returning the favor on behalf of Grandpa. However, I do not know the village well and do not know what I can do to help. Today, after hearing what you said, I think there are still some things that can be done, so I plan to let you be in charge of these things. Of course, you don't have to worry about anything. I will send a team to cooperate with you, especially the financial affairs. You only need to tell them the real situation of the village, in case some people want to make money from it. After all, you know some things better than me." Upon hearing Qin Sheng's arrangement, Zhang Yong finally felt relieved. He was really afraid that he could not control himself if he was put in charge of so much money. Moreover, at that time, he would have to face a lot of pressure from the village. Qin Sheng said very directly, letting Zhang Yong understand the real situation. "After this matter is finished, don't follow Wang Jiangwo anymore. You are so smart. It is obvious that you will not have a good future if you follow him. I will arrange a job for you. Don't think too much about it. Start from the bottom step by step. I will give you a big platform according to your ability. Your future depends on your own efforts. If you disappoint me at that time, I will not help you anymore." Chapter 550. Childhood Playmates Nowadays. Qin Sheng naturally had the ability to change the fate of ordinary people like Zhang Yong. However, he would not do such a thing at will. After all, everything had a cause and effect. Qin Sheng did not even have any contact with them. If he changed the script by force, there would definitely be repercussions. At that time, even he did not know what kind of consequences it would bear. Therefore, the more powerful the big shots were, the more cautious they would be. As for Zhang Yong, Qin Sheng asked him to go back to the Sihiyuan of the Qin family to do that thing, because Qin Sheng was returning the favor to the Zhang family. Otherwise, why didn't he ask Wang Jiangwo to go with him? Apart from training Zhang Yong, Qin Sheng was also testing him. Once Zhang Yong let Qin Sheng down on this matter, Qin Sheng might not have anything to do with him anymore. Zhang Yong was very excited at the moment. He was afraid that he would not be able to sleep tonight. He did not expect that Qin Sheng would ask him to come here, nor did he expect to have such a conversation with Qin Sheng. After this conversation, he already saw a bright future for the next 10 years, or even half of his life. Although he did not know how powerful Qin Sheng was now, with Qin Sheng's current strength, most people would not be able to meet such a noble person in their lifetime. Zhang Yong replied firmly, "Brother Qin, don't worry. I will definitely not let you down, nor will I embarrass you." Qin Sheng clinked glasses with Zhang Yong and chuckled as he said, "All right, you don't have to be so nervous. It's like a military order. Be kind and do things down to earth. If you work harder, God will definitely not treat you unfairly." After they finished talking about business, Qin Sheng chatted with Zhang Yong and asked about old friends and old news in the village. What Qin Sheng did not expect was that Zhang Yong had even swept his grandfather's grave. He said that at that time, he felt that Qin Sheng was not around all year round and the old master was all alone there, so he more or less felt sorry for him. After all, the Zhang family had a good relationship with the old master. So he went to Leguantai to ask the old Taoist priest about it. Then he found the old master's grave, although he had only been there 2 or 3 times. Moreover, after his parents passed away, he often stood by the grave alone and could feel that kind of loneliness. This moved Qin Sheng very much. He did not doubt Zhang Yong's words, because there were indeed some wine bottles and fragrant roots in the grave. He did not know who had come to pay homage to the old master. Qin Sheng was more and more sure of Zhang Yong. This boy was kind and smart, and could indeed be cultivated well. As for how far he could go in the future, he was not sure. At 11 o'clock, it was almost time. Qin Sheng was ready to go to bed. After all, he had to attend the activity of China World Hotel tomorrow morning. However, Zhang Yong said that he wanted to go back to his residence in the North 5th Ring Road. Since it was already so late, Qin Sheng asked Zhang Yong to sleep in the guest room. However, Zhang Yong was a little embarrassed. Most people were like that. Qin Sheng smiled and said, "From now on, you are no longer the Zhang Yong of the past. Don't feel inferior when you face anyone. You have to face them calmly. Only in this way will people respect you. In the end, your strength will be recognized. After hearing what Qin Sheng had said, Zhang Yong agreed to sleep in the guest room. Before Qin Sheng left, he told Zhang Yong to be mentally prepared when he went back tomorrow and ignore those rumors and slanders, because he was no longer on the same side as them. 2. Zhang Yong certainly understood. He nodded seriously. After walking into the guest room, Zhang Yong only dared to stand in the luxurious environment. He planned to take off his clothes and take a shower first. Otherwise, the white bed sheet would definitely be dirted. After the shower, Zhang Yong got into the quilt. He lay on the bed, but could not fall asleep. He was very excited, but he forced himself to calm down. It was just the beginning, and he could not be arrogant. He wanted to share this happiness, but he did not know who to tell. In the end, he did not know whether to laugh or cry. Zhang Yong let out a long sigh. He wanted to smoke, but he was too embarrassed to do so. He was afraid that the room would be filled with the smell of smoke. In the end, he could only bear it. In this way, Zhang Yong tortured himself like this. He did not know when he fell asleep. When Zhang Yong got up the next day, everyone in the Qin family had already gone to work. The servants prepared breakfast for Zhang Yong. After breakfast, Zhang Yong was sent back to his residence on the North Fifth Ring Road by the bodyguards. After he arrived at the group, he went to find Xiao Yusin, who was in charge of the director's office. Naturally, he met Dingyu. Dingyu greeted him politely, but he just nodded politely. Dingyu was disappointed again. It seemed that the crown prince did not like her. Did Xiao Yusin say something bad to him? In Xiao Yusin's office, Qin Sheng told her what had happened. He hoped that she could assign a few people to take charge of this matter. Xiao Yunshin smiled and said, "Chairman Qin, it's not a difficult thing. Our group has a special charity foundation, which is responsible for the group's charity and poverty alleviation programs. Recently, we have increased our efforts in targeted poverty alleviation in the Western region. We have reached cooperation with the Western region and the poor in backward cities and counties. We will not only donate to the nursing homes and schools, but also provide corresponding poverty alleviation programs. You only need to propose that the village be included in our poverty alleviation program." Xiao Yusin was right. Targeted poverty alleviation was now a strategic plan of the state. Almost all large state-owned and private enterprises had corresponding programs. Chong was no exception. It was said that billions of yuan had been invested in targeted poverty alleviation this year, and it would be increased in the future. However, after hearing this, Qin Sheng did not want to have too many entanglements with the group. He said bluntly, "Sister Xiao, it's not necessary. This is my personal matter. You just need to help me find a team to take charge of this matter. If there is a need in the future, I will trouble you again." Xiao Yusin did not know what Qin Sheng was worried about. She nodded thoughtfully and said, "Okay, I will arrange it now. I will report to you later." Qin Sheng said politely, "Thank you, Sister Xiao." After returning to the office, Yin Pan told Qin Sheng that the group's motorcade was waiting downstairs. Mr. Chong was waiting for him in the hall, ready to go to the China World Hotel to attend the event. So Qin Sheng went downstairs with Yin Pan. The China World Hotel was not far from the Chong and Financial Center. Qin Sheng and Chong Sini took the same car. Since he entered the company, Qin Sheng did not have much contact with Chong Sini or Hao Mingyi. He just did what he should do and went to them when he really needed help. Qin Chang'an had a special feeling for Mercedes-Benz. All the cars in the group were basically Mercedes-Benz. Chong Sini and Qin Sheng sat in the back row. Except for them, only the driver was driving seriously. "How is it? Are you getting used to it?" Chong Sini asked casually. She had met Qin Sheng several times and had a good impression of this young man. It had nothing to do with his identity. Qin Sheng said honestly, "Aunt Chong, thank you for your concern. I'm getting used to it, but there are too many things to do. I always feel that I don't have enough time. I don't know when I can start work." Chong Sini laughed and said, "Don't be so anxious. You have plenty of time. Let's talk about it after you thoroughly understand the situation of the group. Not everyone can take over the work in a short time." "Aunt Chong, do we really have time?" Qin Sheng asked meaningfully. Of course, Chong Sini knew what he meant. They knew the inside story better than anyone else. Chang Sini said thoughtfully. Qin Sheng, there are some things that you shouldn't worry about. Even if you know it, you don't have the ability to solve it. Your father will handle everything. You just need to work hard to improve yourself and prepare for the moment when you take over. Chang Sini might have said what she thought, but Qin Sheng did not think so. There were many shareholders in the group, and their background were complicated. All kinds of forces were mixed in it. What's more, anyone would change his mind in the face of benefits. Not everyone would take him seriously. The reason why they took him seriously was that the old man was still in that position. Once something happened to the old man, everyone would give him a push when he was down. Qin Sheng did not ask more questions. Chang Sini asked him questions perfunctorily. On the matter of the group, he had to gradually build up his logical thinking ability. He also had to figure out the background of the directors, senior management, and the heads of the subsidiaries. The China World Hotel was under the management of Shangri-La Hotel Group. It was known as the Second National Guest House. Every year, it received countless VIPs and heads of state. Obviously, the event of the Chang and Group and CITIC Bank was of high standard. In fact, the program of the event was very simple. The executives of both sides would give speeches, then sign the contract, interview the media, and finally, a simple cocktail party. Although Qin Sheng was asked to attend this event by Qin Chang'an, he was not among the VIPs introduced. He just sat behind Chang Sini. Even the executives of the subsidiaries did not know who Qin Sheng was. Qin Sheng attended the event step by step. He had been looking forward to the event, but he found it boring in the end. He still did not understand the purpose of attending this event. CITIC Bank and the Chang and Group had a close relationship. Why did they need so many people to attend a cooperation ceremony? Besides, the credit of CITIC Bank was only 10 billion, which was a drop in the bucket for the current Chang and Group. After the event, there was a simple lunch party. Chang Sini did not take Qin Sheng to meet the executives of CITIC Group and CITIC Bank. She let Qin Sheng go freely, but he could not leave in advance, which made Qin Sheng even more confused. Holding a glass of wine, Qin Sheng wanted to find an acquaintance to chat with, but he found no acquaintance. Basically, they were middle-aged, successful people over 35 years old and friends of the media. Just when Qin Sheng was feeling bored, a young man with outstanding temperament in a suit walked slowly to Qin Sheng and took the initiative to say hello. Hello, Qin Sheng. I can't believe it's you until I confirm again and again. I really didn't expect you to attend this event. Qin Sheng was confused. It was a bit embarrassing that he didn't know anyone else, so he smiled bitterly and said, I'm sorry. Who are you? The young man combed his oily hair and looked very handsome and spirited. He was full of confidence. He chuckled and said, My name is Jiang Zhili. I'm Jiang as in Jiang Zia, and Zhili as in educated and well-mannered. We don't know each other. Qin Sheng was even more confused. Anyway, he was sure they didn't know him. The young man then explained, Because we were childhood playmates, but you disappeared later, so we haven't seen each other for more than 20 years. I heard that you came back some time ago, but I didn't expect to meet you here today. Chapter 551. The storm has passed the Planning Commission compound in Sanlai, was one of the most famous compounds in Beijing in the last century. Many leaders had been born and raised there, and many of them had started their careers there. Although it had gradually disappeared in history, the people who came from there were still active in Beijing, and most of them were in high positions. Jiang Zhili claimed to be Qin Sheng's childhood playmate. Of course, he was also born in the Planning Commission compound, which was a small society with all kinds of facilities, so there were many children there. Jiang Zhili and Qin Sheng used to be in the same group. Their families were close, and their parents were close, so they often played together. Of course, there were many other people. Qin Sheng disappeared, and his mother passed away. From then on, the Qin family had moved away from the courtyard of the Planning Commission. Since then, they had lost contact with the Qin family. It was not until Qin Chang'an broke out and reached the peak of his life that the Jiang family and the Qin family got in touch again. However, it was not like before. Jiang Zhili had no contact with the Qin family. Some time ago, When Jiang Zhili heard that Qin Sheng had returned to Beijing, he did not quite believe it. Even though someone had given him a photo, he did not think that it was possible for a person who had disappeared for more than 20 years to suddenly reappear, even though the rumors were quite convincing. However, Jiang Zhili didn't expect to see Qin Sheng here today. Qin Sheng looked exactly the same as in the photo. When Qin Sheng sat behind Chang Sini, Jiang Zhili was almost sure that it was him. In addition, he had asked Qin Sheng tentatively just now. From Qin Sheng's behavior, he could tell that this was his childhood playmate. At this moment, Qin Sheng had come to his senses. No wonder he didn't know this man. Jiang Zhili thought he was his childhood playmate in Beijing. This was interesting. A few days ago, he met his childhood playmate in the village, and today, he met his childhood playmate in the planning commission compound. He didn't know who he would meet next. Jiang Zhili said cheerfully, "I guess you can't remember what happened when you were a kid for a while. But it's okay. If you don't believe me, you can ask Uncle Qin or Sister Ranran later. Then you'll know. I have some impression, but it's definitely not the current you." Qin Sheng replied politely and honestly. Jiang Zhili laughed and said, "I didn't expect that. I thought we would never meet again in this life. I didn't expect that we would have a chance. Life is really unpredictable. Anyway, Qin Sheng, I'm glad to see you again." Jiang Zhili appeared to be very excited, while Qin Sheng was somewhat at a loss. Perhaps it was difficult for him to find the crux of their relationship. However, he still said politely, "Me too. It's just that I've lost too much of my memory." Jiang Zhili said with a smile, "It's okay. You'll remember it slowly. Why don't we find a quiet place to talk?" Qin Sheng agreed with a smile. However, because Chang Sini said that they could not leave the banquet, Qin Sheng could only find a remote place to talk with Jiang Zhili in the hall. Now that he was in a high position in CITIC Bank, he could attend this event today. Of course, he was also qualified to attend this event. By the window of the banquet hall, Qin Sheng and Jiang Zhili did not drink. They just casually talked about the trifles of their childhood. Basically, Jiang Zhili was the one talking and Qin Sheng was the one listening. Qin Sheng casually asked Jiang Zhili why he attended this event. Jiang Zhili replied with a smile. Those who could attend this event were either leaders of the financial system or executives of the two major groups. He belonged to CITIC Bank and was currently working in the Risk Management Committee of the headquarters of CITIC Bank. However, Jiang Zhili said that he was just there for show. He used to work in the headquarters of CITIC Securities and would probably return to the CITIC Group soon. Qin Sheng thought about it and agreed. Since Jiang Zhili was also from the Planning Commission like him, it was obvious that his family background was not simple. Otherwise, how could he be in a high position in the banking system at such a young age? After all, finance was the top of all the industry chains. Jiang Zhili said casually, "Your Chang and group attachés great importance to this event and send such powerful executives to attend. Even you are here. Our CITIC group seems to be a bit low-key." Hearing Jiang Zhili's words, Qin Sheng seemed to know something. He was trying to figure out the deeper meaning of this event. So he said on purpose, "Who knows? A simple event is so grand. I don't even know what I'm doing here. I'm just a bystander." Jiang Zhili frowned slightly and asked subconsciously, "You really don't know?" Qin Sheng said honestly, "How could I lie to you? Who knew what was going on? If the old man didn't tell him and Aunt Chang didn't tell him, it would take him forever to figure it out." Jiang Zhili was dubious. If he guessed correctly, this should be the most important event of the Chang and group in the past 6 months. It was not that this event was very important. In fact, compared with the previous events of the Chang and group, it was not worth mentioning at all. After all, the Chang and group was the major shareholder of several big banks and real estate companies, not to mention the insurance industry of the Chang and group. However, this was a special period. Jiang Zhili said meaningfully, "Qin Sheng, maybe you don't understand. Maybe you just came back to Beijing and don't know some rules. Some things are actually the most important on the surface, such as today's event. This event is actually very ordinary, but the credit granting ceremony is not simple. It is not only a ceremony, but also a signal to the outside world. This signal is more important than anything else. This signal is confidence. To be frank, maybe you know better than me what the Chong and group has been going through these days. I'm afraid that everyone is staying away from the Chong and group. However, at this critical moment, the CITIC group reached an agreement with the Chong and group and gave the Chong and group a credit of tens of billions. After hearing this news, people who have a real sense of politics will immediately read the deeper meaning. That is, the Chong and group is safe and sound. Hearing the last sentence, Qin Sheng suddenly came to his senses. It seemed that what Jiang Zhili said was true. No wonder so many executives from both sides attended today, and the old man even asked him to attend. This was the real intention. Qin Sheng stood there in a daze. Jiang Zhili thought that Qin Sheng did not believe what he said, so he continued to explain. If you didn't leave Beijing when you were a child, you would also understand this truth after being immersed in this big environment for more than 20 years. Which group at the top of the pyramid doesn't have a sense of politics? I don't want to talk about the Chong and group, but our CITIC group is a state-owned enterprise. Everything has to follow the rules. If there is no order from the top, do you think we dare to mess around during this period? We can't wait to be as far away from you as possible. If we get involved in any trouble, we may get into trouble. No one can bear this responsibility. At this time, Qin Sheng came to his senses and also understood what Jiang Zhili meant. He thanked him sincerely and said, "Zhili, thank you very much. After your explanation, I finally understand." For Jiang Zhili, it was just a piece of cake. He chuckled and said, "It's just a small thing. Don't mention it. You have experienced a lot and seen a lot. You will naturally understand." Qin Sheng smiled and nodded. "Anyway, I still have to thank you. I will treat you to dinner some other day." Jiang Zhili took the opportunity to say, "Don't wait for another day. We have been separated for more than 20 years. It is fate that we can meet again today. Tonight, I will be the host. Let's find a place to have a few drinks. Then, we will gather all our old friends. I guess you have forgotten everyone, but when they talk about you, they will be very happy." To be honest, Qin Sheng still did not know Jiang Zhili well. In this environment, he had to be wary of everyone, so he did not dare to agree easily. Jiang Zhili did not think so much. At least now, he just felt that it was rare for him to meet his childhood playmates again, and they should celebrate. Besides, Qin Sheng's identity was a person that he must win over. So he said, "Don't refuse. Let's take a step back. In the future, you will definitely be in the big circle of Siju City. I think you know better than me what kind of background our courtyard has and how many leaders have come out of it. Those childhood playmates are now on the road of life. In the future, we can help each other, don't you think so?" Qin Sheng thought for a while, and it seemed to be true. He had to manage his own circle. After hesitating for a while, he said, "Okay, I will listen to you. Let's get together tonight." The party was very simple, so it ended soon. Qin Sheng and Jiang Zhili exchanged contact information. Then, they left by car with Chong Sini and the others to go back to the group. When Jiang Zhili returned to the headquarters, a leader asked him to get in his car. In the car, he asked casually, "Zhili, who is the young man you chatted with? I think he has a good relationship with Chong Sini." Jiang Zhili had a good relationship with this leader, who was one of his current backers in the headquarters. Of course, this leader was also his grandfather's student. So he answered frankly, "Uncle Jia, you have a good eye. That young man is not an ordinary person. He is the prince of the Chong, and family, the only son of Qin Chang'an." The middle-aged man, who was called Uncle Jia by Jiang Zhili, said thoughtfully, "I see." When Qin Sheng returned to the office, Wei Xiaoxia had just finished her lunch and was resting in Z. Yin Pan followed Qin Sheng to the China World Hotel. Qin Sheng called his sister as soon as he entered the door. After asking about her normally, he said, "Sister, I went to the China World Hotel to attend an event today. My father asked me to go." Qin Ran, who was about to take a nap, smiled and said, "I know. Xiao Yusin told me. You're close to her?" Qin Sheng was a little surprised. He did not expect that Xiao Yusin would tell his sister about it. It was a little unexpected. Qin Ran said happily, "Not bad. I am quite familiar with the director, so I know our father's movements more or less." "Oh, I see." Qin Sheng nodded and said, "Sister, you should know the meaning of this event. Our group and my father are all right, right?" Tut, tut, tut. I didn't expect my brother to be smarter than I thought. He figured it out so quickly. Qin Ran was very surprised. Then she said, sort of, "It should be fine in a short time. The biggest crisis has passed." Qin Ran said it so casually, but what she had experienced during this period was not something that outsiders could know. Qin Sheng felt a sense of helplessness again. The crisis came suddenly, and he did not notice it. The crisis left quietly, and he did not notice it either. It seemed that everything had nothing to do with him. Was the crisis over? Chapter 552. Chapter 553. Death Forget It. After hanging up the phone, Qin Sheng stood by the window in a daze, as if all this had nothing to do with him. Originally, he thought that he would have to face the pressure of dark clouds pressing down on the city, but he did not expect that it would be a false alarm in the end. However, this was also good. Nothing was better than something bad. This would also give him more time to adapt to this new environment. If the worst-case scenario really happened, he would probably disappoint a lot of people if he couldn't bear all the pressure and responsibilities. Qin Sheng let out a long sigh. It was no wonder that the old man was in a good mood after he came back from Shenzhen. Perhaps it was precisely because of the trip to Shenzhen that he was safe and sound. It was also no wonder that Annie had gone to Shenzhen again. Perhaps something had happened there, and Annie had gone there on behalf of the Qin family. In fact, Qin Sheng did not know that the reason why the Qin family could get through the crisis smoothly this time was that the other side had pressured them a while ago. Qin Chang'an had met with an accident in Beijing, and Qin Ran, Qin Sheng, and Qin Jing had met with an accident in Shanghai. This was a bit too much. Therefore, standing under the common interest, some influential big shots had spoken up. However, only Qin Chang'an knew that the crisis was not over yet. The Qin family and the Chang and faction had enough time to solve the problem. If the situation remained the same, it would be even more difficult. No matter what, he finally had a chance to breathe. Hearing the knock on the door, Qin Sheng woke up with a start. Thinking about it, he realized that he had too many things to worry about. This was not within his ability. He would think about it in the future. Yin Pan walked in slowly and said, "Chairman Qin, Boss Liu wants to see you." Hearing that Lu Yang was looking for him, Qin Sheng nodded with a smile and said, "Let him in." Before long, Lu Yang walked into Qin Sheng's office. He always had a smile on his face. As the most valued young man, Lu Yang's position in the group was not low. It was said that he had roped in a group of young men who could be promoted in the future. The executive director's office is really different. It's much bigger than my office. Lu Yang and Qin Sheng were already familiar with each other, so they did not exchange greetings. He knew Qin Sheng very well. The more casual you were with him, the better. If you were to put on airs with him, he would always keep a distance from you. Qin Sheng narrowed his eyes and reminded him, "Non-executive director. It's the same. There's no difference," Lu Yang said with a smile. He wanted to say that he would be the chairman sooner or later, but of course he couldn't say that. Qin Sheng said casually, "If you like, we can exchange places and enjoy different sceneries." "You dare, but I don't." "Then I won't be able to stay in the group anymore." "Ha ha ha, just kidding. How is it? Are you used to it? If you need any help, just let me know. I can't say that I'll tell you everything I know, but I should know what you want to know," Lu Yang said thoughtfully. Of course, he approached Qin Sheng with a purpose. Qin Sheng motioned for Lu Yang to sit down. Then he asked Yin Pan to make him a cup of tea. After he sat down, he said, "I just started working. Let's get to know each other first. If you really need my help, I won't hesitate to ask." "Okay." Lu Yang nodded silently and then said, "Do you have time tonight? It's my treat. I happen to know that there is a newly opened Cantonese restaurant. I heard from my friend that the food is not bad. Take it as a celebration for your new job. At the same time, I also invited a few colleagues who are the core of several important departments. You can also learn something you want to know." Since Qin Sheng had promised Jiang Zhili at noon, he smiled bitterly and said, "I already have an appointment tonight. How about this weekend or another time?" Lu Yang did not stand on ceremony and replied, "Then this weekend." After Liu Yang left, Qin Sheng sat on the sofa and drank tea in a daze. When he called his sister just now, he had already inquired about Jiang Zhili's background. Qin Ran was confused and asked, how did he know about Jiang Zhili? Qin Sheng told her what had happened in the China World Hotel at noon. After hearing it, Qin Ran was not very surprised, which meant that the news of Qin Sheng's return had spread like wildfire in the circle of Sijio City. After all, the Qin family was the kind of family that was closest to the core of power. Qin Ran told her about Jiang Zhili. Indeed, as Jiang Zhili said, he and Qin Sheng were childhood playmates. At that time, the two families were close to each other. Their parents also had a good relationship. After all, they were both young people at that time, and they could get along well. Later, as Jiang Zhili said, after the Qin family had an accident, they moved out of the courtyard of the planning commission. Not long after, their family also left. Therefore, they did not have much contact after that. Qin Ran did not have any impression of Jiang Zhili. After all, he was a few years older than Jiang Zhili and did not have a common circle with him. The Jiang family was only famous in the financial system. However, Jiang Zhili's grandfather and uncle were both in the military system. Qin Sheng said that Jiang Zhili would treat them to dinner at night and invited several playmates from the same courtyard. Qin Ran did not have any objection. In the future, Qin Sheng would have his own circle of friends when he mingled in this big circle. However, Qin Sheng was different from others who grew up together with them and were bound by feelings or family interests. Apart from being playmates, Qin Sheng did not have any contact with them. Because of the status of the Qin family, he had to be more cautious when making friends. She believed that Qin Sheng would have a sense of propriety. In the evening, after work, Qin Jing went to Qin Sheng's office first. This girl did not have any scruples about this. Now many people in the group knew that she was Qin Sheng's cousin and the chairman's niece. Most importantly, she was single. Therefore, many rich playboys in Chang and were eager to make a move on her. Some men who wanted to soar into the sky also wanted to make a move on her. Qin Sheng had promised to take Qin Jing to dinner, but apparently it was not going to happen today. Qin Jing was very unhappy about this. She knew that in the future, Qin Sheng would have more social activities and the time he could spend with her would be less and less. After Qin Sheng comforted her, she finally calmed down. Now that the crisis of the Qin family had been resolved, Qin Sheng's safety was no longer a concern. Therefore, Qin Sheng only asked Chang Baji to follow him and the other bodyguards to send Qin Jing home. At the same time, he asked Brother Wu to choose 2 reliable bodyguards to protect Qin Jing in the future. In this way, he could be at ease. Before work, Jiang Zhili had already called Qin Sheng and told him the place to have dinner tonight. It was not a high-end club. After all, they were not ordinary people. Some of them were even in the system. The more trivial it was, the more careful they had to be. Therefore, they chose a private home restaurant that specialized in Shandong cuisine. The master of the chef used to cook at state banquets, so the taste was definitely not bad. Jiang Zhili was more particular about food. When he was young, he was famous for being a foodie. He had robbed a lot of his friends' biscuits and rice crust. However, the most famous thing about him was that he married a supermodel who gave birth to a precious son for him. Many people were envious of him. Regarding this matter, he had always been very low-key. He was not willing to talk about his wife and never interfered with her freedom. After all, this wife and he had been childhood sweethearts. Both families were old friends. Later, his family intended to matchmake them, and they got along well. Therefore, it became a good story. Before Qin Sheng arrived, Jiang Zhili and the other 4 friends were already sitting in the private room. How could they not drink when they met old friends after so many years? Therefore, Jiang Zhili took 3 bottles of Maodai from his grandfather, which was specially provided by the army. However, he did not intend to go home until he was drunk. It was most interesting to drink and chat. Otherwise, it would be too boring to only care about drinking. Old Jiang, you are really influential. You even invited the young master of the Qin family. I'm afraid that he has long forgotten about us. A man wearing glasses, who was sitting opposite Jiang Zhili, said happily. The young man had a high hairline and looked greasy. Those who did not know him would think that he was 35 or 36 years old. Jiang Zhili said casually, "Lunatic, when Qin Sheng comes later, don't say such sarcastic words." Although he is Qin Chang'an's son, he did not grow up in Beijing. He just returned to Beijing some time ago. There are many things that he doesn't know. So let's not talk about those trivial things. Madman was a little unhappy and said, "Then tell me, what should we talk about? Just drink awkwardly? Tonight, it has nothing to do with anyone's identity. We just want to welcome our childhood friend back to Beijing. Let's reminisce about the old days and get familiar with each other. If you like it, we can get to know each other better. If you don't like it, just treat it as a meeting with an old friend and don't have anything to do with each other in the future." After all, Jiang Zhili was the host, so he had to tell them some things in advance. He was afraid that these people would treat Qin Sheng like those rich playboys in the circle. A man wearing a sweater on the right side of Jiang Zhili said in a deep voice, "How can we not have anything to do with each other? He is Qin Chang'an's son. Who dares to ignore him? But to be honest, if I did not hear from you that the storm of the Chang and group has passed, I really dare not have anything to do with the Qin family," a very handsome man on the left side of Jiang Zhili said. Madman echoed, "That's true. Old Jiang, tell us about it. You know more than us. Let's talk about it another day. I just heard the rumor," Jiang Zhili said perfunctorily. These people were all close to him, so their family backgrounds were not simple. They were very careful about the matter of the Qin family. The man wearing the sweater added, "However, I am afraid that if we take him seriously, he will not take us seriously. To say the least, even if he is not Qin Chang'an's son, his uncle and uncle's husband are still there." Jiang Zhili was not interested in this kind of chat. He directly stopped them and said, "Let's not talk about this. This is all in the future." At this time, the waiter came in to remind them that the guest they were waiting for had already arrived. This was also what Jiang Zhili had told them in advance. He was afraid that Qin Sheng would suddenly come in while they were chatting, which would be a little embarrassing. On the way, Qin Sheng was full of expectations for this dinner tonight, but he was also afraid of being disappointed. He was looking forward to making up for his missing childhood memories. He was disappointed because he was afraid that these people were similar to those rich playboys he had seen in the past few months. After all, they were no longer children now. They were all heirs who were burdened with responsibilities and pressure. They had to consider everything too much. Chapter 553. Some conjectures this private home cuisine restaurant was not opened in an alley, but in a business district. The chef regarded himself as the inheritor of Shandong cuisine. He wanted everyone to eat delicious and cheap Shandong cuisine, so the price per person was not very high. Naturally, the business was relatively good, and people needed to book in advance to get a private room. In the beginning, Jiang Zhili wanted to choose a quieter place. Anyway, he had been in many clubs or clubs like this. Later on, he gave up the idea. That would make him seem too distant. This was just a gathering of ordinary friends, not a business banquet. Chang Baji walked Qin Sheng to the door of the private room and stopped. He was very sensible and did not go in. The smartest thing about Chang Baji was that he had a good sense of propriety. He knew when he should do what and when he should say what. When Qin Sheng followed the waiter in, Jiang Zhili was the first to stand up and greet him. He said with a smile, "Qin Sheng, everyone has been waiting for you for a long time. We were just talking about you." Qin Sheng nodded slightly to Jiang Zhili, then saluted and replied, "Sorry to keep you waiting." Everyone smiled and said that they were fine. In fact, they were quietly sizing up Qin Sheng, their childhood companion who could be said to be full of legendary colors. After all, not everyone would have such an experience. He had an illustrious background, but had disappeared for more than 20 years. They thought that he might have died, but he suddenly appeared. The timing of his appearance was so coincidental. In fact, Qin Sheng was also guessing Jiang Zhili's purpose. It was not that Qin Sheng was gauging the heart of a gentleman with his own mean measure. Today, after knowing that the dark cloud hanging over the Qin family for several months had dissipated, he had to think about this matter again. According to Jiang Zhili, he already knew that Qin Sheng was back. If he really cared about this childhood companion, why didn't he find a way to contact him? On the contrary, after knowing that the Qin family was safe, he took the initiative to interact with Qin Sheng. Was this interaction deliberate? If the Qin family was still not safe, would they not have met by chance today? Everything was possible. People's hearts were complicated, not to mention in this world full of interests. Let's cut the crap. If you want to reminisce about the past, let's talk about it while drinking. Although we used to be friends who could pee farther, we haven't contacted each other for more than 20 years after all. So, let me introduce you to each other first. Jiang Zhili was the host tonight, so this matter was naturally handed over to him. Naturally, everyone agreed to Jiang Zhili's suggestion. At the same time, Jiang Zhili's metaphor made everyone smile in understanding, so that they wouldn't feel awkward when they met. Although they were familiar with each other, that was when they were young. At this time, Jiang Zhili pulled Qin Sheng aside and introduced him. I won't say much about him. I've told you a lot just now. Qin Sheng is our childhood friend in the yard of the Planning Commission. I'm afraid you all have heard a lot about him in the past. Qin Sheng has been missing for more than 20 years, which also caused us to not contact each other for more than 20 years. No matter what happened during this period, now that Qin Sheng has returned to Beijing, we should all be grateful. Welcome Qin Sheng back. After Jiang Zhili finished speaking, he took the initiative to applaud. The others also applauded. Regarding the appearance of Qin Sheng, everyone was currently maintaining a wait-and-see attitude. Even though Qin Sheng had the huge background of the Qin family behind him, it was still unknown whether he could integrate into this circle and whether he belonged to the same group of people. Thank you, everyone. I'm very happy to see you again. Although I've forgotten what you used to look like, and I'm afraid you can't recognize me, I'm very glad to see my old friends again, Qin Sheng said politely. After introducing Qin Sheng, Jiang Zhili began to introduce the other friends who came to this party today. The man nicknamed Crazy was called Tang Kai. When he was a child, he was relatively thin and small and was always bullied. Qin Sheng and the others had fought for him several times. Now, he was also working in the system. His family was relatively influential in the diplomatic system, so he directly entered the Ministry of Foreign Affairs after finishing his postgraduate studies in the School of International Relations of Renmin University. Jiang Zhili then introduced the man in the sweater. His name was Song Fong Wang, who was now working in the Banking Regulatory Commission. He probably knew more about Chang, and he had a good relationship with Jiang Zhili. After all, they were both in the financial system, so they had more daily contact. Next was the handsome man on Jiang Zhili's left side. His name was Xing Xiaodong. He was the only one present who was not from Central Enterprise, but a big boss in the entertainment circle. With the help of his family's relationship in the publicity system, he had an investment company and 2 film and television companies. He also had a stake in many film and television companies. The most important thing was that his brother-in-law was an invisible big boss in the film and television industry. The last one was also a guy who had never spoken tonight. His name was Su Wan. He looked ordinary and was not tall. However, he had always been relatively low-key and rarely participated in the circle's gatherings. But everyone knew that this guy was very ambitious. Jiang Zhili was also very surprised that he could come to this party tonight. At that time, he just mentioned it casually and did not expect that he would come. But in the end, he still showed up. However, he was not very close to the others present. He was the kind of person who was considered a friend, but not a sworn brother. After all, only his background was comparable to Qin Sheng's. But only Jiang Zhili knew that, so he should be regarded as a person who drifted around the edge of this circle. However, when he was young, he had the best relationship with Qin Sheng. The two of them were inseparable. It was said that after Qin Sheng disappeared, he cried for more than half a month. After all, his best friend had passed away, which was a big blow to him when he was young. So after hearing the news, he agreed to come at once, because he really did not know that Qin Sheng had come back. When Qin Sheng slowly came in just now, he had been restraining his inner excitement. He did not want others to notice his emotional fluctuations. This was what he asked of himself, so he did not speak from beginning to end. When Jiang Zhili introduced Su Wan, Su-wen took the initiative to reach out and said, Su-wen, our two families live in the same building. Qin Sheng just felt that this name was a little familiar, but his memory of Su-wen had long been blurred. So when he saw Su-wen, his expression was similar to when he saw others. He just shook hands and nodded politely, which made Su-wen very disappointed. He had been thinking about Qin Sheng for many years and still kept a photo of him at that time, as well as the gift that Qin Sheng had given him back then. So he thought that Qin Sheng was the same, but after meeting him, he knew that it was not the case. After Jiang Zhili finished introducing Qin Sheng, he let Qin Sheng sit next to him. Xing Xiaodong had already taken the initiative to give this seat to him. Just now, it was just to make it more convenient for them to chat. Jiang Zhili told Qin Sheng that he had ordered everything. They were all the signature dishes of this Shandong restaurant. The taste was definitely in line with the taste, but the environment was relatively ordinary. He asked Qin Sheng what he wanted to add. Qin Sheng smiled and said that there was no need. He never had any requirements for food. Tonight, he mainly came to meet everyone. The waiter soon served the cold dishes. Jiang Zhili asked them to distribute the wine, then looked at Qin Sheng and said, Qin Sheng, since you're so happy tonight, it should be okay to drink a little, right? Qin Sheng replied with a smile. It's okay to drink a little. I'm just afraid that you guys will make me drunk. I'm afraid that my alcohol tolerance is not as good as yours. Ha! Then let's not go overboard, Jiang Zhili said cheerfully. Then he asked Su-wen, Old Su, I know that you rarely drink. Do you want to drink a little tonight? Jiang Zhili was very careful in front of Su-wen. He knew that Su-wen didn't think much of his friends. After all, his circle didn't belong to this circle. Although they were all bright and beautiful hedonistic children in the eyes of outsiders, hedonistic children were also divided into backgrounds and levels. Su-wen was at least one level higher than them. Su-wen's answer was very simple. 2 words, drink a little. At the beginning, the atmosphere was not lively. Jiang Zhili took the initiative to lead the rhythm. Although Madman was more lively when Qin Sheng came, he did not talk much after Qin Sheng really came. Jiang Zhili took the initiative to talk about his childhood. The others chimed in with him. It was not until then that Qin Sheng knew that Su-wen had been the closest to him in the past. The way he looked at Su-wen was more amiable, but that was all. It had been more than 20 years. What had happened to the world? Not to mention the children who used to wear open crotch pants. They had long become the same as those adults. After a few glasses of wine, the atmosphere became more lively. One after another, they began to call each other brothers. After all, there was a layer of relationship in the past. These people were not like Qin Sheng's childhood playmates in the village. After all, the gap between the playmates in the village and Qin Sheng was relatively big, so they naturally felt more inferior and alienated. However, these people were different. They might be more restrained in the beginning, but after chatting, there were no taboos. After all, they were at the same level. After talking about some interesting childhood stories, Madman asked with a smile, Qin Sheng, are you married now? Not yet. Don't tell me you are all married. Qin Sheng replied with a smile. The others said happily that except for Xing Xiaodong, who was reluctant to leave the flowers, everyone else had indeed been married. Of course, they also talked about Jiang Zhili's wife. Qin Sheng was very surprised. He did not expect that Jiang Zhili's wife was actually the supermodel he used to like very much. This made Qin Sheng a little envious. Madman followed up and asked, Then you must have a girlfriend, right? Yes, if I don't have a girlfriend, others will doubt my sexual orientation, Qin Sheng said half-jokingly. Madman laughed and said, Could it be our goddess, Song Ruyu? I've heard from many people that your relationship with Song Ruyu is quite ambiguous. If you can win our goddess' heart, you'll be so proud. Madman laughed. At this time, Song Fong Wang also echoed, I seem to have heard this from others. Qin Sheng, tell us old friends about it. Many people chased after Song Ruyu, but failed. I didn't expect that you, a latecomer, would surpass her. Chapter 554. Chapter 555. Chapter 555, So Powerful? Since Qin Sheng returned to the Qin family, Qin Ran had been reminding Qin Sheng to be more careful when dealing with these rich playboys. Whether they were old friends or new friends, he had to be careful. Because Qin Sheng had never been in this circle, he naturally did not know how shallow the water was. With such an identity, he was likely to become someone else's prey. Qin Sheng originally thought that he might have thought too much at today's gathering. It was not until Madman talked about Song Ruyu that Qin Sheng was sure that he did not think too much, because these people had already given themselves away. They had long known that he was back. As for how they knew, Qin Sheng did not care, but they must have secretly inquired about it. But why did they never take the initiative to look for him? Was it because they had not contacted each other for more than 20 years, and taking the initiative to contact him would make others doubt their motives? Or was it because the Qin family was in danger, so they took the initiative to stay away and did not want to be involved? Of course, if that was the case, Qin Sheng could understand. After all, their identity inevitably made them think this way. But Qin Sheng's expectations for them were naturally greatly reduced. However, they had not contacted each other for more than 20 years. What was there to look forward to from the emotional foundation established by a few years old? To say the least, if it was not because of Qin Sheng's identity, if it were an ordinary person, who would care about you? They would have completely forgotten about you. Therefore, Qin Sheng's mood instantly fell to the bottom. He squinted his eyes and smiled. Who did you hear this from? The people present were all smart people who often chatted happily with leaders and big shots. The environment they were in also made them very good at observing people's words and expressions. Therefore, Qin Sheng's expression and tone at this moment made everyone realize that this topic caused by the madman made Qin Sheng very unhappy. The atmosphere instantly became awkward. Everyone looked at each other and realized that they had talked too much. Some of them might have a natural sense of superiority. After all, they grew up in Siju City, unlike Qin Sheng, who had been wandering outside and only came back recently. However, they seemed to have forgotten that among these people present, Qin Sheng's identity was the most prominent and had the most powerful background. He was not someone they could compare with at all. Only Su Wen could be at the same level as him. Jiang Zhili, who realized that something was wrong, quickly eased the atmosphere. Qin Sheng, don't take it seriously. Madman usually likes to joke. He doesn't mean anything else. Qin Sheng did not pay attention to Jiang Zhili. It was not that he did not want to give face to Jiang Zhili, the host, but he really wanted to get to the bottom of it. This was not a small matter. What? Why wouldn't I dare to say it? Qin Sheng seemed to say it casually, but everyone knew that Qin Sheng was serious. When Qin Sheng was serious, the others realized that they had somewhat underestimated Qin Sheng. Madman smiled awkwardly and replied, I also heard it from others. It seems that a friend sitting at the table next to me said it at a party. Qin Sheng really wanted to say, that means you have long known the news of my return, but he did not say it out loud. Otherwise, the dinner would not go on. As a result, Qin Sheng laughed out loud and said, look at how nervous you are. I just asked casually. Ruyu and I are just ordinary friends. If it weren't for the fact that our families are old friends, do you think I would know the great goddess song? Ha ha, I knew it. How could Qin Sheng be angry? But to be honest, Qin Sheng, if you can really marry the great goddess song, you will really make us proud. Xing Xiaodong echoed. He and Jiang Zhili had been leading the atmosphere tonight, talking about a lot of trivial and interesting things in the entertainment circle. Jiang Zhili did not want to delve further into this topic, so he stopped them in a hurry and said, all right, let's not talk about this. Qin Sheng already has a girlfriend. You old men who are already married, stop thinking about the great goddess song. Let's drink. After Jiang Zhili finished speaking, he raised his glass. Everyone followed him and raised their glasses. This topic was over. However, Qin Sheng was a little confused. Where on earth did the news come from? Who said that he had an ambiguous relationship with Song Ruyu? The dinner went on, but it seemed that because of this small matter, the atmosphere was a little bit awkward. Qin Sheng did not say anything more. When a few bottles of wine were drunk, the dinner came to an end. Originally, Jiang Zhili wanted to continue with the next round, but now it seemed that it was obviously not suitable. Everyone first sent Qin Sheng to the car, politely greeted and waved goodbye. When Qin Sheng got in the car, Jiang Zhili said in a low voice, "If they said something wrong, don't take it too seriously. Maybe they were too happy to see you. It's okay. I'm not a stingy person," Qin Sheng said casually. Jiang Zhili patted Qin Sheng's shoulder gently and said, "Okay, we'll contact each other later. Be careful on the road." Everyone watched Qin Sheng leave, but the look in their eyes was meaningful. Song Fong Wong first sighed and said, "The first young Master Qin is still full of confidence, far beyond us. Although he has been away from this circle for more than 20 years, it is far from as simple as we think." Lao Fong, if your family had such a strong background and inside information, you would also be like this, Xing Xiaodong responded with a smile. He really envied Qin Sheng's background. With such a strong background, he could succeed in whatever he wanted to do. Madman, who was angrily rebuked by Qin Sheng tonight, said sarcastically, "I see it clearly. It's impossible for us to become friends with the first young Master Qin. We can't afford to be friends with him." Jiang Zhili said impatiently, "You guys, can you not think so much? I've already said that tonight is just to catch up and meet our childhood friends. Nothing else. If you guys have a purpose from the beginning, then I really don't think it's necessary for you to come tonight." No matter what, Jiang Zhili had to say so, because other than the others, Su Wen had not left yet. He could be sure that tonight's gathering had further lowered Su Wen's evaluation of them as friends. In the future, they would definitely be further apart. If that was really the case, it would really be a little bit of a loss. Su Wen, who had been silent, said at this time, "I still have some work to do. I'll leave first." Jiang Zhili said helplessly, "It's still early. I was still thinking of finding another place to drink tea and drink wine. We haven't seen each other for a long time. Let's have a chat." Another day. Su Wen rejected very tactfully, but it was obvious that his tone was a little disdainful. He was a proud person and had always had ideals and ambitions, so he actually did not have many like-minded friends, and he did not want to be in the same boat as most people. Before Jiang Zhili could say anything, Madman took the lead to send him off. "Okay, you can leave first if you have something to do. Let's meet again if there's a chance." Su Wen did not say anything and went straight to the side of the road to hail a taxi. He did not drive over tonight because he had already planned to drink. Seeing his childhood best playmate again, Su Wen's impression was neither good nor bad. He was not as excited as he had imagined, nor was he as disappointed as he had imagined. However, he knew that their interaction had just begun. However, if he really felt that they were not the same kind of people, Su Wen would completely cut off contact with him. He would not let anyone stop him from moving forward. After Su Wen left, the hot-tempered madman snorted coldly. "What are you pretending for? Look, did you see that? He doesn't want to play with us at all. Don't force him in the future." Song Fong Wong said thoughtfully, "Madman, don't say that. Su Wen has always been like this." Xing Xiaodong let out a long sigh and said, "All right, we parted on bad terms. Let's go back to our own homes and find our own mothers. I don't know who you're going to find this time. Who knows how many girls you've ruined." Song Fong Wong scolded angrily. Jiang Zhili looked at these childhood friends and could only sigh helplessly. Some of them really went further and further, while some of them were still in the same place, so the end was almost visible now. On the way back to the Sihiyuan, Qin Sheng took the initiative to call his sister and told her about the gathering tonight. This was because Qin Ran had told Qin Sheng on the phone at noon that he would tell her after he was done. She also wanted to know what these childhood friends' attitudes towards Qin Sheng was now. "Su Wen is here too?" Qin Ran was a little surprised. Among these people tonight, only Su Wen had contact with her. In the past, he often called her to ask about Qin Sheng, but later on, he was busy with work, so their contact became less and less. Qin Sheng asked curiously, "Sister, do you know him?" "How can I not know? When we were young, you and Su Wen had the best relationship. It could be said that you were in the same boat. Su Wen often stayed at our house, and you often slept at Su Wen's house. Whenever there was something delicious or fun, you would think of each other first. Later, after you were taken away by Grandpa, Su Wen was sad for a long time. A few years ago, he would ask me if I had any news about you. But later on, we contacted less. I have a good impression of Suwon. As for the others, I have long forgotten, Qin Ran said truthfully. Qin Sheng recalled the gathering tonight and muttered to himself, "No wonder I always felt that the way he looked at me was different from the way others looked at me. So that's why. But tonight, he didn't talk much and didn't communicate much with me." Suwon's character is like that. He doesn't talk much. But you can say that Suwon is the most promising one among your group. Now he is working in the central office. Speaking of Suwon, Qin Ran had a lot to say, so she was very surprised that Suwon could come tonight. After all, Suwon was not on the same level as the others. Qin Sheng was very shocked. So powerful? What do you think? Qin Ran was not surprised by Qin Sheng's shock. After all, those who could enter the central office were not ordinary people. Moreover, Suwon was the kind of person who had been entrusted with high hopes. As long as he was given enough time, he would definitely soar to the sky. However, there were still some things that Qin Sheng did not quite understand. He could not tell what it was, but he just felt that something was wrong. However, Qin Sheng was really shocked that Suwon was working in the central office. It was absolutely different for ordinary people and rich playboys to enter the central office, just like he knew about Song Ruyu's job. After talking about these things, Qin Sheng asked Qin Ran when she would be back. Qin Ran said that she would be back when she missed her, and then she hung up. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.